ねじれ落ちてゆく空へとまっすぐ伸びた目に見えぬオーブ結ぶの空気膨らめる水がその血脈死の象徴を操られた糸の先は
Umineko time. Hello. It's Trixie. Hello, Aggie, Dine, and Amy. Hello, Ellen. Yeah, we're doing it. Oh, we're doing it. I'm pretty sure that playing this game is going to totally... I should have clicked load, not episode 1. God damn it. Okay. Load me. I love that long, slow sound of a door opening sound effect. Yeah, no need for 15 minutes of shenanigans this time. Everything works now for no reason. Like, remember the other day when I was like, my second monitor doesn't work? The next day, it worked. What was the difference? Nothing. Nothing. From my perspective, nothing. Nothing changed. I just plugged it in the next day and it worked, whereas the previous day it hadn't. Technology doesn't make any sense to me. As far as I'm concerned, God won't leave me alone. All right. I think I'm just going to jump right into it. I feel like anything I have to say will be pointless in the face of we just want to play this video game. Congratulations, Osweeb, on 400 subs. Let's go. Indeed. After that, I don't remember what that was, but all right, that's where we're picking up. After that, we sat in the parlor and wordlessly chewed through the breakfast that Kumasawa-san had made. Of course, this was right after something like that had happened. No one had any appetite. However, we realized that not eating would weaken our bodies. It would also be rude to Kumasawa-san, who had made the breakfast. Kumasawa-san had taken the tasteful Western vegetables, ones that Goda-san had probably special ordered for the purpose of some extravagantly fancy dish, and cooked them in a Japanese style, making them turn an unpleasant color. As to what Goda-san had been planning to cook with those ingredients, right then I couldn't even imagine it. If I did think about it, I would be reminded of the way Goda-san had died, and the inside of my mouth would be filled with a sour taste. For the time being, everyone pretended to eat, but there was no hope of anyone making any headway into the meal. Then everyone was brought up to speed on the current situation. First off, that Uncle Kraus, my dad, Kirie-san, Auntie Rosa, Goda-san, and Shannon-chan had been found in the Rose Garden storehouse as cruelly... I accidentally hit the button. And that despite that, we were unable to use phones or radio and still couldn't contact the police. So until the typhoon passed, there was nothing we could do. What a nice refresher we got right at the start. I really stopped at the exactly right moment last week because he was about to summarize literally what just happened. Furthermore, grandfather, who we had hoped might be able to show a little leadership in this kind of a situation, had disappeared at some point. When did he ever indicate he would show any leadership in this situation? Goda-san hadn't made breakfast, so grandfather's stomach must have been empty. And if he had just been taking a casual walk, by now he should have been stomping back to whine about how hungry he was. And yet, he hadn't appeared. There was more than a small chance that he had become caught up in the earlier crime. Aunt Natsuki and Auntie Ava had said that on their return trip from going to see Kinzo, they had called out to him on every floor looking for him, but were not able to find him. If you think about the timing of it all, it was probably best to think that he had been caught up in the crime. Yeah. If the culprit had taken the trouble to move the bodies of Dad and the rest, who we figured had been killed in the dining hall, all the way to the storehouse, then maybe they had already killed Grandfather, moved his body to some strange location, and we had simply not found it yet. No one actually said that, but this theory seemed extremely convincing. We will go check that all of the windows and doors are closed. We must also carefully search for Father. Children, make sure you do not leave this room. Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san, I'm sorry, but please stay here with the children. Dr. Nanjo as well. I understand. I will wait here. Aunt Natsuhi led the servants, Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, and Kanon-kun out of the parlor. All that was left was Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi, Dr. Nanjo, and the four of us children for a total of 7 people. Let's all stick together and maybe watch some TV while we wait. Geez, Sunday daytime TV sure doesn't have many good shows on, huh? Uncle Hideyoshi tried to stir up this gloomy atmosphere, acting cheerful.
Good show. Watch it.
Oh, really? You want to watch TV, Maria-chan? Then come and watch it with your uncle. Maria was the only one who played along. Even though Maria had been told of her mother's death, she didn't show the slightest flicker in her emotions. Was 9 really this young in age? No one else was feeling the slightest bit like joining in. She's just like, nah, fuck that bitch. Wait, I wouldn't be. I mean, her mom is fucking... First of all, she's into witchcraft. Second of all, her mom was beating the fuck out of her on the daily basis, so... No one else was feeling the slightest bit like joining in, and they each sank into their sofas and let their minds go blank. Aniki, can I ask you something? What is it? Just now in the storehouse, you said something about Shannon-chan and a ring. Did you give that to her? George Aniki didn't answer, but he hung his head and closed both of his eyes. There could be no clearer response. Quit it, battler. Have some tact. You're right. I shouldn't have asked that. That's right. It was me. Last night, I proposed to her. That was when I gave her the ring. I told her that tomorrow she should put it on whatever finger she wanted as her answer. I must have sounded so full of myself. And that ring had been on the finger of Shannon-chan's left hand. Actually, I've been having talks with Shannon for several years about you, George Nisan. I wonder what she could have said. Shannon was always really bad at lying. It was instantly obvious that it was you she was talking about. She asked whether it'd be okay if she got close to you, being just a servant. She asked about stuff like, what kind of things do boys like? And what kind of clothes should she wear to make them happy? Lots of stuff like that. Obviously, the big titty maid uniform was the strike zone she landed in. How should I say it? Well, I was jealous of her. All that, and right after she's handed the engagement ring, it's just all over. I know people value things differently, but being proposed to by a man is, in a way, the high point of a girl's... Shut the fuck up, Jessica. She was never going to be happier than that moment, so it's fine. Jesus fucking Christ. So I'm sure last night, I think Shannon was happy from the bottom of her heart. No, the happiest she'd ever been since she was born. You never would have done better, George. George Haneke, without raising his head, sighed deeply. Or maybe tears had risen to his eyes. It seems that Shannon was on duty in the guest house last night. But because she was too embarrassed to go back to the guest house with me, she went over to the mansion. Think about Shannon's feelings. When you receive an engagement ring, no matter how much you've prepared for it beforehand, it's normal to feel so elated your mind goes blank. She must have been so embarrassed that she didn't know what to do with herself. And then Shannon, even though she hadn't been on duty there, she went to the mansion and got caught up in all this. If only I hadn't, on that day, in that place, given her that ring. Shannon wouldn't have, Saya wouldn't have been caught up in this incident.
兄貴
Aniki,
それだけは
It's not
違
like
うぜ
that.
断じて
it's
違う
definitely not like that.
だから
So don't cry
そ
anymore.
れ以上
バトラ君、
Battler-kun,
そっとしてあげな
leave
さい。
him be. After those words from Auntie Ava, I stopped talking to him. Misplaced words of comfort might actually hurt him. Jessica sat down next to Aniki and quietly put an arm around him. Maybe only Jessica, who had known about Aniki and Shannon's love since the beginning, and who had been discussing that relationship with Shannon, could comfort Aniki now. I went over to Auntie Ava and sat down on the opposite
バ
sofa.
トラ君は強いわね。
Battler-kun, you really are
もう
strong.
だいぶしっ
It
かり
looks
して
like
い
you've
るよう
kept
に
a good
見え
head
る
on
よ。
yourself.
まあその
Well, look, the depth of the love becomes the depth of the
愛の
wound,
深さ
right?
俺は別に
That old bastard I couldn't care less about no
ど
matter
うしても
how
が
he
したことじ
snuffed
ゃない
it.
キリエさんは気の
I
毒です
feel bad about Kirie-san, but
まあ
well, she wasn't
本当の
actually
親
my
ってわけじゃ
parent.
ないですしね
Yeah, fuck her.
あら。
My.
という割に
But
は
on the other
さっ
hand,
き
you
す
were
っ
crying a
ごく大
lot
泣きし
back
てたわ
then,
よ。
right?
まあ
Well, I
育て
did
の親
think
に
that
対する
at
恩は
least that much crying was due as
あのくらいなら
gratitude to
OK か
the
と思いま
parent
して
who raised me.
そのあたりの切り替え
That
の
way you
速
can
さや
switch
ド
your
ライ
mood
なあたり
quickly
は
like that, and your dry tone must have come from Rudolph.
あの子は昔
That
か
kid
ら
would always
激
get
しく喜んだ
violently
り悲
happy,
しんだり
sad,
怒っ
and
たりすぐに
angry,
ケロ
but
リ
he
と
would
変装を
always
取り
regain
戻
his
したわ。
cool immediately afterward. It's
そん
nothing
なこと
like
はないで
that.
すよ俺だって
I haven't really been able to get over the shock yet either.
ただ俺がみん
I
なと違
think
う
it's
の
just
は
that the emotions that rose up in me were different from everybody else's.
どういうこと
What do you mean? Vengeance. I was acting much calmer than George Aniki and Jessica were. That wasn't because my sadness was less intense and I'd already sprung back to normal. It was because my sadness had been gradually replaced by a different emotion. 2 pound from Yakuman says, make window bigger, please. Smooches. Oh yeah, I forgot. Thank you. Rather than sadness, it's more like I'm irritated. What bastard did this, and where the hell is he? I feel like I can't settle down until I've smacked him upside the face. That was what I really wanted to do. It was like I couldn't allow myself to just sit here, overwhelmed with sadness and hugging my knees. Since the time Dad and everyone else was killed, this island has remained covered by the typhoon. In short, that means that the asshole who pulled this disgusting, detestable bullshit is still somewhere on this island.
そういうことになる
It certainly does. I wonder if they're hiding themselves somewhere in that dark forest even now. It felt like I'd had a very similar conversation with Kirie-san the night before. That's right. After the letter from the person who claimed to be Beatrice appeared at the dining table last night, we had talked about whether or not a 19th person actually exists. Auntie Ava, these murders, do you think they have anything to do with the letter from Beatrice last night?
あ
Ah, that thing?
あ、さあ。
Well, I
あの
wonder.
手紙は
Although all of us siblings were in agreement that the mysterious letter had been sent to further complicate the problem of father's
そ
inheritance,
れと今朝の
as to
事件
whether
の
that
関係
and the
が
incident this morning are related, it's impossible to tell at this stage.
あの手紙
Was that letter really given to Maria by some witch called Beatrice?
まさ
How could it be?
か全部
All of it was a
お父
farce
様の
devised by
仕組み
father, wasn't
シ
it?
ャノンちゃんあたり
He made someone like
肖像画の
Shannon-chan
ド
wear
レ
the
スを着
dress
させ
from the
て
portrait and
何かを
deceive
騙したんでしょ
Maria-chan, right?
お父様らし
Isn't
い
that just like the kind of intricate prank father would pull?
ゆうべ
Last night I talked with Kirie-san about whether Beatrice actually exists, and she also said that Beatrice was probably one of the 18 of
そん
us.
なの当然
Isn't
じゃ
that
ないこの
obvious?
島には
There's
私
no
たちし
one
かい
else
ない
on
の
this
よ
island besides us.
なら私たち
So
の中の
obviously
誰
it
かが
must have been someone
ベアトリー
amongst
チェを
us
片手に
pretending
決
to
ま
be
ってるじゃない
Beatrice.
この島には俺たち
There's
以
no
外
one
に
else but us on this island, huh?
当然でしょ
Obviously, right?
私たち以外
Who
の誰
else
が
could
ここ
be
に
here?
この島には
No one
私
on
た
this
ちしかい
island
ない
except us.
18人
There were
しかい
only
ない
18 people. So the one who pretended to be Beatrice has to be one of those 18. Why is she so sure of it? Kirie-san had denied that there was a 19th person by flipping over the chessboard. Even though Auntie Ava hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion at least was the same. Except if that is the case, our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, we were able to dismiss the matter as just someone's prank. However, if we deny the existence of a 19th person at this point, matters are not so jovial. In other words, if there is no 19th person, then the culprit who killed Dad and the others is also one of the 18, right? So in other words, that would mean that someone in this very mansion is the one who killed them. Yeah, wouldn't you have immediately been writing out the suspects in your brain? Auntie Ava smiled meaningfully. It looked like Auntie thought that this conclusion should have been obvious from the very beginning. I mean, it would have been my first thought. The culprit carried the bodies of those 6 into the storehouse. But they sure did a good job getting into that storehouse, didn't they? That shutter was always kept closed and locked, I'm told. In other words, in order to carry them into the storehouse, the culprit would need to unlock the shutter. Understand? Is there any possibility that the shutter was left open by mistake that day? The servant said that it's always shut. In other words, unless they brought the keys out of the servant room, they definitely couldn't have opened the storehouse. Is the key the only key, the one in the servant room? Genji-san said so, yes. Which means that the culprit knew where that single key was stored and took it out. Just now I saw Kanon-kun return the key to the servant room. The wall was packed with keys, and I don't think that an office would know where and to what those keys went to. The culprit was magnificently able to select the key to the storehouse from all of those. Furthermore, even though the key didn't have a tag or anything sticking to it, they knew it was the key to the storehouse behind the rose garden. And while I'm at it, they also knew where the storehouse was. I'll say it even clearer. The culprit knew the inside of the servant room well. Her argument was extremely plain and clear. If the bodies had been thrown somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, no explanation would have been necessary. However, the one key to the storehouse was in the servant room, and stored with a large group of other keys, such that a novice would not be able to tell them apart. This meant that the culprit was someone who was used to going in and out of the servant room and knew well where the key was. The family didn't normally go into the servant room, which means that one of the servants is the culprit? I'm sorry, but even your auntie can't say any more than that. However, I'll tell you one thing. Yes, one thing. What's that? The culprit. We should properly say they were culprits in the plural, and what's more, they were well armed. You see it, don't you? They had to assault the 4 in the dining hall and kill them all at once, drag a total of 6 bodies all the way down to the storehouse beyond the rose garden, and scribble that disgusting makeup on their faces. There's no way that a single culprit could carry all of this out on their own, right? It was impossible. That might not have been if a single person spent enough time on it, but that would have taken ages. It was probably best to think that a significant number of people had been a part of it. A significant number of people. Whew. So what you mean is, maybe all of the servants were in cahoots? Please keep it quiet, okay? It's bad to speak from speculation alone. Besides, what would you do if it really was true? They might not let us return alive. This is an opponent who had no trouble killing Nissan and the 3 others. The only people in this room right now who look like they could put up a decent fight are the 3 people in my family, and maybe you as well, 4 at most. The situation is no different than it was last night. Is she considering herself among people who look like they could put up a fight? They did say she could do some kind of martial arts, right? I think she is supposed to be a badass. In short, it would be easy for the culprit to massacre the rest of us. I had been playing detective with Auntie Ava out of a desire to expose the person who had killed Dad and the rest before the police did. If I could manage to skillfully penetrate the culprit's identity, I wanted to stick the evidence in their face. I had gotten it into my head that if I did that, the culprit would give up and surrender, just like in one of those detective movies. However, the culprit only surrenders there because they are in a situation where resisting would be futile. The culprits behind these incidents on the island were far from helpless, and might even be able to massacre all of the remaining people on the island. And on top of that, this island was like a giant locked room cut off from the outside world by the typhoon. About time somebody pointed that out. Like, hey, here's the big trope this entire story has been based off of. So they had the full day until tomorrow to kill, scheme, and cover up their handiwork. In short, we weren't in the kind of safe atmosphere where we could entertain ourselves by playing detective. On the contrary, we were at a stage where we had to be scared stiff, since playing detective might displease the culprits and cause them to repeat another mass murder. Well, it is just a possibility, right? But I can't bring myself to trust the servants yet, and that doesn't mean they're the only ones I suspect. I also think there might be some mastermind behind all of this.
黒幕
A mastermind? Why do you say that? It's just a feeling. Think about what the word servant literally means. It means they serve someone, they do someone's bidding, right? Everyone who was killed had some relation to the Ushiromiya family, so it would be natural for someone with interest in that result to be involved. This was also plain and clear. The Ushiromiya family were currently right in the middle of discussing how to distribute the inheritance if grandfather died. If this followed the formulaic plot used to death by many classic mystery novels, it would definitely be a crime by someone with ties to the Ushiromiya family and who was entangled in the inheritance problem. Auntie had probably also read a few books in that genre. Her theory did have a few one-sided conclusions to it, but it was a run-of-the-mill idea that anyone would surely hit upon. Yeah, like, hey, did anybody notice we're in like a mystery book right now? I think anyone would have suspected the servants even if their logic was different. Especially the talk revolving around the key to the shutter. That was enough to make it easy to suspect strongly that one of the servants was involved in the case. Which is why
だからなぜか
I don't like
気
it
に入
for
らないっすよ
some
ね
reason.
気に入らないって
What do you mean you don't like it?
あ、いやいやこっちの
Nah,
話っ
just
す
talking to myself. I dodged the question by joking, but I couldn't wipe out the sense of unease I felt inside me. Because the reasoning we had arrived at was altogether too simple. Reasoning that anyone could arrive at. And I just couldn't accept that. If I tried flipping over the chessboard like I had learned from Kirie-san, that was exactly why it was impossible for the servants to be the culprits. If the servants really had been the culprits, they wouldn't have hidden the bodies in a place that was tied to themselves. Certainly not the Rose Garden storehouse of all places, whose key they themselves controlled. The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. That would create a danger for exposure. If we were to assume that they were the culprits, they had no reason to carry the bodies into the storehouse. Did they expect us to think that, and so put them in the storehouse deliberately? No, that definitely didn't make sense. When the police come and inspect the site, all kinds of things will probably become clear. No matter how deeply careful the culprits were in carrying out murder, some kind of traces will definitely be found. So in summary, they have everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way and look at the game from the culprit side, it feels like there's no point in advertising the location of the corpses. If the bodies were found, a report would be sent to the police. The remaining people would become more cautious. They could start looking for who was responsible. Anyway, none of these things would make the culprits feel any more comfortable. Just like the words of the main character's mother in a novel I read recently called Higurashi no Nakukoro ni. No fucking way. Higurashi's set in the 70s, right? And this is set in the 80s. So, like, in his universe, Higurashi is a book that already exists about something that happened in the 70s. Fucking amazing. A mystery story has 4 parts: introduction, development, turn, and conclusion. And so, to commit the perfect crime, it is essential to eliminate the introduction. He's just like, hey, just in case you read my other book, we're doing this thing again. Like, just in case you weren't sure this story was going to follow the exact same logic that Higurashi follows, this story will definitely follow the exact same logic that Higurashi follows. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page here. Right now, no one knew where grandfather was. We didn't know whether he had already become a victim or if he was one of the culprits, but this state of confusion had to be beneficial to whoever did this. By blatantly advertising the bodies to us and declaring, hey, there's a murder case going on, the culprit had absolutely nothing to gain. Right, that was where we could flip over the chessboard. So this blatant advertisement of the bodies was itself the culprit's goal. So it may well be that the culprit, having the 6 corpses be present there, meant more than the deaths themselves. In other words, the culprit wanted to display these murders. To who? To us. It was a message. The culprit was trying to shove something in our faces. I didn't know what it could be. At the current time, none of us could grasp anything from this vulgar mass murder except malice. Malice towards everyone, perhaps. Yeah. Read the anger written in the blood-red trails. Each one of the survivors had some kind of connection to one of the 6 who had been killed. Uncle Krause's death brought sorrow to Jessica's family. The deaths of Dad and Kyrie-san brought sorrow to me, while Auntie Rosa's death brought sorrow to Maria, theoretically. Goda-san's death probably dealt a shock to his fellow servants, and Shannon-chan's death brought grief to George Aniki, who had proposed to her, and to Kanon-kun, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now on this island had received an equal amount of sadness. Auntie Ava had claimed that the servants were definitely in cahoots, but then how could you explain the deaths of Goda-san and Shannon-chan? And by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 deaths hit everyone but Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi. It was very possible to doubt Auntie Ava herself, who was acting like she was outside the net of suspicion, who might even have been trying to point that suspicion at the servants. In the first place, she had managed to avoid suspicion and place it on the servants with that argument about the key to the shutter. But if you looked at it from a perspective of motive about who would gain something from the murders, Auntie Ava's name floated to the top of the list. Battler-kun, Auntie knows what you're thinking, okay?
What?
Huh? Oh no. Please don't tell anyone that I had my head full of, that kind of stuff. I'm the one who would gain the most from these murders. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out in the open myself. I had tried to dodge this conversation by joking around, but it looked like it hadn't worked. The inheritance is to be divided between the siblings, but now the 4 siblings are just me. All the assets of the Ushiromiya family will become mine. Good God, well, make yourself sound like the bad guy, why don't you? If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, give it a rest, Ava, it's not a joke. I'm sorry, okay? No matter how I try to smooth it over, I'll just be suspected anyway, so I was just fooling around. So I've been thinking, from my point of view, this murder might have been planned. That sounds like something fucking O.J. Simpson would say, like... Unfortunately, my alibi for last night is weak. Could you tell me about it? About last night? As you know, the discussion of how we siblings would gnaw apart the inheritance continued until late into the night. But I don't know how late it lasted. My husband and I had woken up early that morning. We were so sleepy, and we let ourselves out a little past midnight. We then returned to the guest house and rested there. Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove that? Oh, of course, it's not like I'm suspecting you or anything, tsundere. My, I wonder about that. Don't know if it counts as proof, but when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san and asked if we needed a towel. I think that should have enough proof that we returned to the guest house a little after midnight. Of course, if my theory was correct and the servants were all in cahoots, that wouldn't actually make for an alibi, would it? That is a point, isn't it? Does that mean that right now I'm playing detective with the real culprit? But let me say this for my honor's sake. If my goal was the inheritance, I wouldn't commit this weird kind of murder. After all, if I just wanted to make them forfeit their rights to the inheritance, the method of their deaths wouldn't have mattered. On the contrary, I'd try to make their deaths look like an accident, wouldn't I? If I'd been roping in the servants and carefully planning everything out, that's even more reason I'd do that. You're right about that. If you were killing someone to make a profit, you definitely shouldn't make it look like a murder. You see? So from here on, your auntie will be in a very blue mood. I'll probably be treated as the person behind this by the police and harshly investigated. I can't wait. Auntie Ava shrugged with a bitter smile. Just like it was easy to think of the servants as suspicious, it was also very easy to think of Auntie Ava as suspicious. So if we flip over the chessboard, did that mean it was impossible for... How many times can you flip the fucking chessboard over? You're just back where you started now. Did that mean it was impossible for the culprit to be the easily doubtable Auntie Ava? However, if that logic could pass so easily, then motive wouldn't count for anything. No, that can't be right. Knowing the motive should be a big clue towards knowing the culprit. That is why murderers throughout history have tried to ensure their motive will not be found out by skillfully complicating the incidents. I don't know. Are there really a lot of murders that have skillfully complicated their... Ellen, what are you counting? Oh, flip over the chessboards. Okay. The total number in the whole story, I guess. Were my thoughts closing in on the truth? Or... Auntie Ava didn't want to talk any more than that, so I headed to the window, folding my arms so that I could cool my head a little. As I looked over the parlor, I saw George Heineke and the others gathered talking. It looked like they were talking about the magic circle that had been painted onto the shutter. As Uncle Hideyoshi thought back to that time, he started drawing the shape in the margins of Maria's notebook. Yes, Maria is second only to grandfather in knowledge of the occult, so she might understand what it meant. I think it was probably something like that. There was a mark like a cross, but tweaked a bit. And then there were these closely packed strange letters all inside the outer circle like this, and there was something written on all four sides of the cross and in the empty spaces in the corners as well. It didn't look like the alphabet or something like that. It was what they call ancient characters. Also, around the top of the circumference, there was a small mark. 5 small circles arranged in a plus sign and straight lines connecting them. Ah, yes, there definitely was something like that drawn there. Yep, this was it. There's no mistake in the shape. I don't know the exact characters, but the arrangement was nearly the same. Everyone was staring down at the shape, so I stared down at it too. From what I had heard, this had been painted on the shutter to the storehouse with some material that looked like blood. I see, this sure is unsettling. Grandfather's about the only one who'd get it into his head to draw this nonsense. Seriously, where did he go? I want to grab him and ask what the hell this is supposed to mean. Jessica's voice contained impatience and anger. She hadn't gone so far as to say that grandfather was the culprit, but it looked as though she thought that grandfather definitely knew the culprit's identity. Certainly, if you asked around for the link that bound the Ushiromiya family and the occult together, 10 out of 10 people would name grandfather. And to a person who knew nothing of the occult, this strange mark would have no meaning, which meant that this might have been something addressed to grandfather. That's right, the reason to advertise the crime is to show it off to the survivors. In that case, where had grandfather, as the essential recipient of this message, disappeared off to? Does this shape ring any bells? Maria looked at the shape with a serious face. Maybe she was enthusiastic since this was her area of expertise. However, her appearance was that of someone separated from the events at hand, as though this thing hadn't been drawn on the shutter closed around her mother's corpse. My first impression was that the design resembled some kind of foreign cross-like symbol. It certainly does have that kind of design. Does that mean it has something to do with that foreign country? That cross symbol was originally a crest from a religious order of knights and was supposed to protect pilgrims traveling to sacred places. Then this magic circle has some religious meaning or something? This is starting to sound like gibberish. When I looked over at all of them preparing to jump into the discussion, something shocked me. Oh. Maria was grinning, an eerie expression on her face that defied description. Hell yeah. A sort of grin almost like she was making fun of everyone's ignorance. You dumb motherfuckers. It was an expression that I wouldn't ever have believed Maria to be capable of making. Oh shit. And then she laughed. An eerie, jarring laugh. Even though I was looking at it right in front of my eyes, I really didn't want to accept it as real.
That's completely wrong, everyone. Can't you tell just by looking?
While everyone was scared out of their wits, Maria alone kept on cackling happily. After a while, that laugh suddenly and abruptly cut off, but her expression was still like someone completely different from Maria.
This is the seventh magic circle of the sun. The characters are Hebrew. Lend it here?
Yes. Maria stole the writing materials from the stunned Hideyoshi's hand. She then started drawing another magic circle effortlessly right next to the one that Hideyoshi had drawn.
See? Give us this kind of shape, right?
Yes, it was.
Maria, that's incredible. You really do know a lot.
Jessica tried to smooth things over by praising Maria. Maybe she wanted to make sure that this was still the Maria who everyone knew so well. But Maria didn't give her any particular response. Maria started fluently writing unfamiliar characters in the corners of the shape. At this sight, the eyes of Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo instantly began to widen.
Written on the four arms of the cross are the names of the angels who preside over air, fire, water, and earth. Chasan, Arel, Talihad, and Forlach. And in the four diagonal directions are the names of the four great rulers. Ariel, Seraph, Tharsis, and Cherub. Do they match?
Even if you are unable to correctly write what you have seen, if you are once again shown something identical, it isn't difficult to state that the two are the same. Asked by Maria whether they matched, Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo nodded over and over again. It's unmistakable. Yes, these kinds of characters were definitely written there. How can you write something like that? There were also characters written around the circumference.
I know. Like this, right?
Maria began jotting down Hebrew all around the circumference.
From the Old Testament's Book of Psalms, Psalm 116, verses 16 and 17. You must at least read the Bible.
Acting as though knowing this was only common sense, Maria laughed. For a while, everyone, including me, was at a loss for words. After some moments, George Aniki returned to his senses and slowly managed to speak. That's incredible. I'm surprised. So, what meaning does this magic circle have?
It's a magic circle to borrow the power of the sun. He who wears it as a talisman drawn in gold shall receive the power to break free from the bonds of any prison and gain freedom.
Break free from the bonds and gain freedom. It sounds deep.
The word bonds is not limited in its interpretation to some kind of physical object. Therefore, it does not only hold meaning for people locked up in an actual jail. It can also refer to the release from mental bonds, such as ties of obligation and inescapable fate.
Ties of obligation and inescapable fate, you say? That's also pretty deep. But I really don't understand. What does this have to do with those 6 bodies? Far from being released, they were killed and stuffed in a storehouse, weren't they?
It's not like the magic circle was drawn for their sakes. The 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle. It is truly pitiable.
どういう意味だよ
What do you mean?
魔法陣の
What in
た
the
めに
world do you mean when you say the 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle? Maria lifted up her index finger and waggled it as if she were making fun of us.
That's written around the circumference. Can't you read? Psalm 116, verses 16 and 17. I'll read it for you. The Lord has freed me from my chains. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and will call on the name of the Lord. See? See, you say? I have no idea what you're saying.
生贄だ
You're saying that they're sacrifices? If the part that Maria had just read aloud was the vital part of the magic circle, then it was saying that the benefit of this magic circle required sacrifices to be offered in exchange. So inside the storehouse where the magic circle had been drawn, the sacrifices had been offered. It looked like everyone else had slowly arrived to the same conclusion. Some were shocked, others spat out, "They're insane," as they punched their knees. This was starting to become a seriously disturbing story, and we couldn't accept it nor understand it. I don't care what kind of magic circles or curses other people believe in. That's their right, and I won't pick a fight with them. But did they really kill Dad and the rest as sacrifices for some bullshit like that? I just couldn't stand that feeling. I'd rather still be disgusted over all that talk around the inheritance. As I started getting pissed off with a feeling between anger and sadness, I broke from the circle everyone was in and returned once again to the window. Something had gone insane since yesterday. That letter from the witch, Beatrice, that Maria had read aloud at last night's dinner. I felt like ever since that point this whole mansion and this whole island have begun to be drawn into some kind of peculiar world. That's right. When I think back on it, that letter was an invitation from the witch. The ruler of the nighttime island had invited us inhabitants of the day into another world. With the phone and the radio interrupted and the island shut off by the typhoon, you could now call it another world cut off from the real one. It's an isekai, y'all. It's an isekai. Yes, on this island right now, it is perfectly normal for witches to send letters and for sacrifices to be offered to magic circles. So what will happen next? Well, it's not like necessarily normal just because it happened one time. I guess everything that's ever happened is normal once it's happened, arguably. Will some weird people wearing goat masks start doing the Bond Festival dance or something? I have to expect that's going to happen at some point. It's no good, I don't get it. The inside of my head's all screwed up and I don't even know what to think. Anger, sadness, the opposing emotions all swirled up together and they started to suck me in. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and entrust my mind and body to the spiral swallowing me. As I started losing heart, I began to recall a distant memory. It was from when I was very young. I had unfortunately seen a scary occult movie on TV, and for a while I hadn't even been able to go to the bathroom by myself. That old bastard had given an exaggerated laugh and said this. Hey, Battler, why do you think they go to all the trouble to make movies like this about demons and the occult and such? It's because they don't exist. Something that ridiculous can't be found anywhere on the planet. Because they don't exist, people want to see them, and they go to a lot of effort making them. That's why those occult movies just make me laugh. If you ask me, rather than demons and monsters, this year's earnings call and angry wives are 100 million times scarier. I'll go further, alright. If you ask me, being scared is an emotion for the entertainment of people who have too much time on their hands and too much empty space in their minds. Women, he's talking about women. They have so much free time, they don't know what to do with it. So in order to play around with unusual emotions, they created a culture of demons and monsters and stuff. Seriously, why have I been acting so damn thick-headed? I was totally taken in. To hell with that shit. This is the human world. As if I give a crap about witches, demons, magic circles, and sacrifices. The human who killed Dad and everyone else is still on this island. That's all there is, right? Next to start speaking to my heart was
チェ
Kirie-san.
スや将棋って
You
ね
know, in chess and
終
shogi,
盤の
the
終
deeper you
盤
proceed into the
詰めの
mating,
最後の段
mating
階に入
attempt,
れば
the
入る
very
ほど
last moment of the
最善手は
endgame, the more
限られてく
limited
る
your
のね
best possible moves become.
だから
Therefore, in that very
自分が追い詰めている
moment when you're backing someone against the
あるいは
wall,
追い詰
or
められて
someone
い
is
ると
doing
い
the
うその
same to
時
you,
両者の手は
Both
限りな
players'
く
moves
読みやす
become
くなる
infinitely easier to read.
つまり
In other
完全
words,
に
when
追
you
い
are
詰められ
completely
て
cornered and you
打つ
think
手
you
な
have
し
no
と思
moves
った
left,
その
that
時
is
こ
when
そ
the moment
最
when
も
it is
読みや
easiest
す
to
い
reach
瞬
your
間なの
opponent.
でも主催になった
However, when a
人間
person
は
is forced
どう
into
し
a
ても考
defensive
えること
position,
が
they
できなく
can't
て
help but lose their
相手
ability
の
to
手を
think
読むことに
clearly,
まで
so
考
they
えない
forget
と
to
い
read
け
their
ない
opponent's moves.
そういう時はね
That's
チェ
when
ス盤を
you
ひっく
flip
り
over
返
the
す
chessboard. Motherfucker.
Flip that chessboard over every single time. With all of my strength, I slapped my face with both hands. God damn, with all of his strength. Now my eyes were truly open. When you don't understand anything and you're completely cornered just like I am now, isn't that the perfect time to flip over the chessboard? Bro, you did it like 5 times already. Like, you haven't... It's not like you're just remembering to do that. You just did that. With us put on the defensive, we couldn't even guess at the culprit's scheme. Just don't ever stop flipping the chessboard. Keep that shit spinning like it's on a fucking fidget spinner. If you flipped it over and looked at it the other way, just how far could you see? Not very far. You're gonna have to flip it again, I promise. First off, at the time the murders were committed by the culprit, they knew that the island was cut off by the typhoon. So they should have understood that even if they carried out the murders, they wouldn't be able to get away until the next morning. In short, the culprit had begun without securing a way to escape. Furthermore, the bastard had even tossed the corpses in the storehouse, while doing the courtesy of telling us they are here with that weird graffiti. In other words, since we would probably find the corpses sooner or later, they wanted to show us them. If we had all been dim and hadn't noticed the storage shed, perhaps the culprit's goal would not have been achieved? If you think about it this way, that murdering maniac, since this morning he must have been watching our every move with bated breath. After all, if we hadn't been so kind as to discover what was on the storehouse, all of that hard work and preparation that they had gone last night would have just gone poof. What did the culprit want to make us feel by showing us the corpses in the storehouse? All 6 of the bodies had had their faces noticeably destroyed. A grudge? A warning? The defacement of the bodies had occurred after death. So it hadn't been the means by which the culprit had murdered. It didn't mean anything to those who had been killed. It had meaning to those who discovered it. The culprit wanted to show them to us. Look how brutally I killed them. Well, specifically also, like, 4 of them have no face and 2 have. Ha! After thinking this way, I really want to tell that asshole to stop taking me so lightly. Who would dance to that tune? If I'm told please be scared, I'm not just gonna say, really? Sure thing. When someone tells the great Ushiromi a battler, entranced this way, I'm the kind of... Was that like another version of Walk This Way by Aerosmith? I'm the kind of guy who will start wanting to sneak in through the window. Oh, entrance this way. Okay. The next thing that had me concerned was the attempt at a magic circle on the shutter. It was a genuine magic circle, declared authentic. Why do entrance and entrance, why are they spelled the same way? How does that make any... Why are those 2 words that have nothing the fuck to do with each other spelled the same way? Anyway. How often do the character logs update? Let's see if they have. I don't think they have. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about Maria losing her shit, so it probably hasn't updated recently. It was a genuine magic circle declared authentic by even Maria, who had demonstrated that her knowledge of the occult rivaled grandfather's. I don't know about that far. That motherfucker's old. They must have drawn that thing in pitch black darkness while holding an umbrella in one hand, and it must have taken them a lot of time. That's a formidable amount of hard work and attention to detail. What purpose would have been worth all of that effort? If something related to the occult happened in this mansion, most likely we would all automatically suspect the involvement of Grandfather. Did they want to make us think Grandfather was involved? But if that was all they wanted, they could have just drawn any old scribble that looked like a magic circle. It wasn't like any of us amateurs could tell the difference between genuine and fake. However, this magic circle was genuine, and furthermore, it had even been written in Hebrew. So, this magic circle had a message that could only be understood by someone with knowledge of the occult. Messages are a form of communication. You send them and hope for a reaction from the other party. Reaction? For some reason, we couldn't find Grandfather now. I don't know how Grandfather could have managed it. Why haven't y'all just been, like, tearing the fucking island apart looking for Granddad? Like, I'd have been... Kinzo's portrait was gray, was it? Had it not been? Is that just because he's missing? He does sometimes go out for a walk on a whim without telling anybody, which on several occasions has led to a huge uproar throughout the house. He usually comes back as soon as he gets hungry. Usually. I don't know how Grandfather could have managed to see the magic circle on the shutter, but had he chosen to hide himself in reaction to that sign? No. Was it a trap to make us suspect Grandfather's involvement? You could read it either way. Damn, that's annoying. What kind of reaction was the culprit hoping to get out of us by showing this imitation of the occult? Somehow that felt like the culprit's weak point. A section of Beatrice's letter that Maria had read aloud during last night's dinner sprang back into my mind. The part that said, I ask that you enjoy your battle of wits. Sounds like fun. This is a battle of wits between us and the witch. Which will be the first, us being swallowed up by your occult games, or me revealing you for who you are? There's a whole day until the typhoon passes. Why not enjoy ourselves? Nope, no. I finally noticed that the inside of the parlor had gone quiet again. Everyone had sunk into their favorite sofas, some deep in thought, some irritated, some depressed. Maria was once again enjoying the television as if she had never left it. It looked like she had found the commercials more fun than the boring program, and she happily yelled, "Ooh, ooh," and giggled. Yeah, TV is great when you don't have a bitch in your ear telling you that it sucks. I stared at each person's appearance in turn. If there isn't a 19th person, the culprit must be in this room. Everybody's so pissed off. Daniel. Right now, Aunt Natsuhi was searching the mansion with the servants, though, wasn't she? Then it shouldn't be in this room. In this mansion, is what we should say. After all, there was also the possibility that Aunt Natsuhi was behind this, and we still couldn't deny that one of the servants could be the killer. Anyone could be the bad guy. Still, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest sure are slow. Of course, it's not a small mansion, but isn't this taking a little too long to just walk around checking the windows and doors? Maybe they're all gonna die this round. Just as I thought that, not Natsuhi and the rest returned. None of them was missing, oh never mind, but our relief was short-lived. Everyone looked at Aunt Natsuhi shocked. What, is she, like, dead there, standing? The talk I'd had with Auntie Ava started to creep back into my mind. The possibility that the culprits had enough in numbers or weapons to kill all of those 6 at once. Oh shit. Sorry if I've startled you. I brought this to be prepared for the worst. Because that thing in Aunt Natsuhi's hand was a rifle. At a glance, its silhouette looked a lot like a hunting gun, but it was unusually short and kind of looked like a kid-sized gun. However, it had a thickness to it which revealed that this was definitely not some kid's toy. Isn't that Kinzo-san's gun? Did you know about it? That's right. I remembered that it was in Father's old collection, and I managed to find it.
Sure.
Whoa. Awesome. Oh, Nazi, is that thing real? Yes, it's real. It can fire live ammunition. Long ago, Father used it to scare off wild birds. Oh, I remember. Where could that have come from? No matter how much I asked him to let me touch it, he never let me even lay one finger on it.
Huh?
小さな
Grandfather had one of these?
知らなかったです
I didn't know.
お父様は
Long
昔
ago, grandfather was
西部
really
劇に
addicted to
どっぷり使ってたこと
westerns.
あの世代は
That
こういう
generation
ライ
really
フル
liked
銃
this
が
kind of
大好き
rifle.
な
結構年季
It
の
looks
入っ
like
た
it
銃
has
のよ
some
うですね。
considerable history to it,
でも
but I've
こんな
never
短い
seen
使
one
用
this
のは
short
初めて見
before.
ました。あ
Ah,
あ、思い出した
I
わ、そ
remember
の
that
銃。
gun.
懐かしいな。
That's the one that the
昔好き
gunman
やった
goes
映画
firing
ガン
off
マン
with
が
in that old
派手
movie I
にぶっ
used
放
to
しとった
love.
やつだ。お父さんも
Father
渋い
sure
な。
has good tastes.
親方様が
Long ago, the
だいぶ
master had
昔
that brought over especially from
豆
America.
ご覧の通り
As you can
実
see,
銃
it
で
is
す
a real gun, so I would ask that you keep this a secret.
手に入れられたばか
He
りの
was
頃
quite
は
tickled by it when he
大層
first
気
got
に
his
入れられ
hands
た
on
折
it.
物より
It seems the
薬莢を
workings
出す
that
動作
ejected
が
the
面白いら
cartridges
し
were
く
more
て
interesting to
あ
him
の
than
森
shooting
で
it,
い
and
ろ
he
いろ
played
と
around
格好
with
つ
it
け
back
て
in the
遊んでお
forest
られ
all
た
the
もんですよ
time. Ooh.
しかし
Still, what a dangerous
そん
thing.
なもの
Are
ま
you
で持
sure
ち
you
出しち
should
ゃう
be
のか
dragging
し
this
ら
out?
万が一に備えて
This is preparing for the worst.
族はおそらく
There's
一
probably
人で
more
はな
than
いで
one
しょ
of them.
うしかも
Furthermore, they are
主人と
terrifying
6人も殺した
people who
恐ろしい
killed
相手
6
です
of us, including my husband.
私には主
I
人
have
に
the
代わって
responsibility to
皆
protect
さんを明日
everyone
まで
until
守る
tomorrow
義務
in
があ
my
ります
husband's place. As Natsuhi-san said this, she slumped down into one of those sofas and took a deep breath. As well as checking the doors and windows, she had also been trying to find grandfather. Since grandfather was not with her, apparently his whereabouts were still unknown.
屋敷内の戸締
I
まりは
carefully checked all of the
厳重に
doors
確
and
認してきま
windows
した
throughout the
です
mansion.
が
However, we
万が
must be
一というこ
prepared
とも
for
ありますみ
anything.
んななるべ
Everyone, I
くここ
think it
に
would
一緒
be
にいた
best
方
if
がい
we
い
all
でしょう
remained here.
そうね
I agree.
ここに全
If
員
everyone
が
is
集まっ
gathered
て
here, then we can
相
all feel
互
more
監視
secure
を
by
してい
keeping
る
an
方
eye
が
on each
安
other.
心それはどういう意
What
味
do
で
you
す
mean
か
by that,
エヴァ
Ava-san?
別に
Nothing really.
夏日
I'm
姉
just
さんの
agreeing
意
with
見
your
に賛
opinion,
成した
aren't
だけよ
I? There was a dangerous atmosphere between the two of them. If you thought about who stood to gain the most from the inheritance problem standpoint, Auntie Ava was the obvious answer. However, there was no proof that Aunt Nazi was innocent. No, if you view Beatrice's letter as grandfather's elaborate prank, and think of this incident as just an extension of that, there was more than enough evidence to doubt even grandfather. Aunt Nazi thought that the criminal was on the outside, but Auntie Ava thought the criminal was on the inside. In short, it was the question of whether or not a 19th person exists. It was the doubt that had been repeated endlessly since last night's dinner, with the letter from the witch who called herself Beatrice. So was the culprit among us or not? And did the witch Beatrice exist or not? If you assumed that something as stupid as a witch couldn't exist, it was the same as saying that one of these relatives here who shared a common bloodline was the culprit. If you didn't like that, it would be much more comfortable to simply accept the fairy tale about the witch. Did a witch do it? Draw that weird magic circle and sacrifice those people? If I could only accept that rubbish, I would be able to completely trust everyone in this room. Hey, $5 Canadian from Nick Angel says, just tuning in, digging the vocal acting. Thank you very much. However, damn common sense got in the way. It kept repeating that witches don't exist. In that case, the culprit was among us. In the middle of the seemingly endless rain, none of us could break our silence. Oh shit, another crack. Alright, I'm gonna go get myself a glass of water because my throat be dry. I'm gonna wait for the clock to go in so I can save. Yeah. Let me see. What the fuck? Why did me trying to save game make it crash? Why did it happen? Do I gotta go through all that again? Just no, it's saved. It's saved. At least it's saved. I don't know why it crashed. No, it didn't save. What the fuck? The image was of where we were. What the fuck? What was the fast forward key? God damn it. Control. Yeah. Psycho Maria. Where's the gun? Where's Psycho Maria? I read a lot more than I probably realized. Bring me back to Crazy Little Girl. Yeah, that was the best part. Why did it crash when I saved? That's problematic for me. I don't like that, no siree. It's a bad time for B. Alright. Oh, you're right. I didn't run it as administrator, Ellen. You are correct. I forgot about that. That's probably exactly what the problem is. Well, whatever. We'll make it to the end. I'll deal with that later. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, bunga. Why try to save again? It's gonna fail. It's literally going to crash and die. I could do it on another file. Yeah, see, it's just that was obviously gonna happen because I didn't run it as administrator. So now we got to do all that again. The fuck? Who just printed this shit? Why? It's like a postage stamp just printed all of a sudden. Okay, whatever. Yeah, but Ellen, I could have done the controlling for 20 minutes off screen instead of us having to do it on screen again. But it's fine. Everybody wants to suffer together. That's the spirit of Umineko. Beatrice printed the stamp. Beatrice! I want to do that Maria voice again. That was my favorite part, but I don't know how often I'm gonna get to do that. I suspect not very. Nazi with the gun. Yes, Ellen, you must participate in the next Fix Trixie stream for your own sake. I'm going to be president of the United States. So if there's anything that you want the president of the United States to not be annoying about, including like forgetting their save files and games and shit, you got to get in on those chats. It's like the ultimate level version of letters to the editor. Lunch had ended, and the servants had removed the tableware and were now in the kitchen. The wind and rain had neither weakened nor strengthened, and the island remained cut off from the outside world. It seemed that at first Nazi had planned not to let anyone set foot outside the room, but when it came time to prepare lunch, she finally realized that this was impossible. However, in order to avoid having anyone alone in the kitchen, she told the 3 servants to go together. Because of that, the servants were the first ones given the right to leave the stuffy parlor, which had been packed with 11 people. Since breakfast had immediately followed that terrible incident, and many of them hadn't eaten much, everyone tore into their lunches in silence. I will wash the dishes so you can rest a while, Genji-san, Kanon-kun. Do you want something to drink?
私は結
Nothing for me.
果の
Kanon?
僕も結構です。
Nothing for me either.
お二人とも
You two must have been so busy and so early in the morning. It's no wonder you're worn out. The only sound was that of Kumasawa washing the dishes, which resounded throughout the kitchen. Genji and Kanon sat in some chairs a short distance away, their eyes lightly closed. Just as Kumasawa had said, those two had probably built up a great deal of fatigue, but that didn't mean they could let it show in front of the relatives. Avoiding that was one of their virtues. After the silence had continued for some time, Kanon opened his mouth and muttered, Shannon,
どうして
why did she have to die in such a horrible way?
死に方の
Forget about how she died. It was nothing more than bad luck.
そうですね。
You're right.
ただ
It was nothing more than bad
運
luck.
がなかった
I don't know about all that. They both fell silent. Well, that wouldn't be my cope. Kanon's expression was filled with grief.
シャノンちゃんが死
To
んじゃっ
think
た
that Shannon-chan's actually dead.
未だに
I
信
still
じられま
can't
せん
believe
よ
it.
本当に
Poor,
かわ
poor
いそう
Shannon-chan. Fuck all those other people.
もう会えないなん
Not
て
being able to
嘘み
meet
た
her
いです
again
よ
feels like a lie.
もう一度
I just wanted to see that
あの
girl's
子の
smiling
笑
face
顔が
one
見
more
たかった
time. Kumasawa spoke with her back facing them. Kumasawa hadn't seen Shannon's corpse, so she had no trouble mentioning Shannon's face. When Kanon heard those words, it reminded him again of how only half of Shannon's face had been left, and his grieving expression twisted even further.
どうしてベアト
Why
リー
did
チェ様は
Beatrice
シャノン
Sama
を
do that to Shannon? That's a good question.
生贄が欲しかったな
If she wanted a sacrifice, there were plenty of others to choose from.
どうして
Why?
どうして
Why?
ただ
It was nothing more than bad luck.
少しの運
If chance had fallen even slightly differently, it could have been me or you lying out there, or even someone else. Everything is left to fate.
源氏様
Genji-sama,
奥様の部屋の
you
扉
said
に
that the door to Madame's room
血
was
のよう
stained
な
with
ものがつい
traces
てい
of
たとお
something
っしゃ
like
っていま
blood,
した
right?
シャッターに書
The
かれてい
same
た
substance that was
同じもの
painted on
が
the shutter? Yes.
君
It
の
was
悪
an
い
unpleasant mark, almost as though someone with blood-stained fingers had been trying to pull out of the doorknob. No, scratch through the door.
そんな君の
That sort
悪
of
い
unpleasant mark.
ベアトリーチェ様が
So does this mean that
奥様の部屋を
Beatrice
訪
Sama
れ
came
て
to visit
そして
Madame's room and tried to open
扉
the
を開
door
こうと
but
したけれど開けなかった
couldn't?
ということでしょう
Is
か
that what this means? Genji thought back to the time he had seen those traces of blood on the door to Natsuhi's room. With the substance sticking to the door around the doorknob and the marks of something scratching against the door, it had definitely appeared as though someone had tried to open the door but
どう
couldn't.
して
Why?
奥様は生贄
Was
を免れ
Madame
なか
not
った
chosen as a
も
sacrifice?
し奥様が
If
選ば
only
れ
she
て
had been chosen,
シャノンは
Shannon wouldn't
シャノンは
Shannon wouldn't have to
死なな
die.
くて済んだのに
Yeah, fuck Natsuhi. Just then, a loud, sharp noise resounded from the hall. Both of them turned around, surprised.
面白そうな話
Sounds
じゃ
like
ね
a
えか
pretty interesting discussion you're
俺も
having.
混ぜて
Let me join in too. Battler was standing in the doorway to the
バト
kitchen.
ラ様
Battler-san,
これは失礼いた
please
しました
excuse me. Genji-san and Kanon-kun stood up, surprised and hastily bowed. But I didn't care about stuff like that. I was more concerned with continuing their
便所っ
discussion.
て言って抜け
And I
させても
told
らっ
them
た
I
の
was
さ
going to the bathroom, so they let
ず
me
っとあの
go.
部屋に
I
閉じ込め
thought
られ
I'd
てると
suffocate if I was
窒
locked
息
up
し
in
ちま
that
いそう
room
だ
any
った
longer.
水でも飲ませても
When
ら
I
お
was
うかと
about
思
to
った
come
ら
ask you for some water, I
面
overheard
白そうな
something pretty interesting.
頭なんか
You don't
下
need
げ
to
なくて
bow
いい
your
ぜ
heads or
今の
anything.
話の続
Please,
きを聞
let
かせ
me
てく
hear
れ
the
よ
rest.
今のは別に
That just now wasn't really...
ちょいと前から
I've
話
been
を聞かせて
listening
も
to
らって
you
る
for
の
a
に今更
while.
隠
Don't
す
try
な
to
よ
hide it now.
だか
So I'll
ら
ask
ベアト
directly.
リーチェって
Who
の
is
は
this
何者だ
Beatrice?
どうやらおと
She's
ぎ話
supposed to
の
be a
魔女っ
witch
て
from a
だけじゃ
kid's
なさ
story,
そ
but
う
it
だ
doesn't
な
look that way now. Kanon-kun averted his gaze. It was obvious that he didn't want to talk about this, which only made me want to ask even more. While making an effort to smile, I grabbed the collar of his shirt. If it were last night, this would be none of my business. But after this morning, everything's changed. Now that Dad and the rest have been killed, this is totally my business. I have the right to listen to the suspicious story, don't I? I glared into Kanon-kun's eyes as he still continued to look away in apparent pain. Since there was a big difference in our heights, Kanon-kun had to stand on his toes, and it looked like it hurt a bit. Battler-san, please let go of him. It's not like Kanon-san is really hiding anything. Then you won't have any problem talking about it, right? It's lonely being out of the loop, get it? When I tried to further twist up his collar, Genji-san cut between us and spoke. There was a slight sense of resignation on his face. It looked like he didn't plan on hiding anything. I can talk about it. Kanon only hesitated because you might have taken it badly, Battler-sama. Hesitating isn't very manly, is it? Keeping it a secret's even more unpleasant. Tell me about it. It's not like I have anything better to do before tomorrow comes. A slightly shady story might be the best way to stave off boredom. After Genji-san and Kanon-kun looked at each other, they nodded as though they had decided to talk. Understood. Please ask us anything. We'll talk. Right. Then I'll ask. Who in the world is Beatrice? All I know is that she's a witch who lives in the forest of Rokunjima. I've heard that it's a story that grandmother or someone invented to keep people out of the dangerous forest. Is that wrong? No, it isn't wrong. It's as you say. Beatrice-sama is a witch who dwells in the forest of Rokunjima. Battler-sama, I don't expect you to believe this all of a sudden, but Beatrice-sama exists. She is a real person, the one who gave the master a vast amount of gold and who has worked by his side for many years. Huh? Ah, come on. Is grandfather paying you to repeat everything he says? I laughed like it was a joke, but neither Genji-san nor Kanon-kun laughed. Not even Kumasawa-ba-chan, who avoided my eyes, flustered and stared, washing the utensils. So unfortunately, I was the only one laughing, painfully, bitterly. I see now why you warned me, Genji-san. Anyone sane would take this badly. So you're saying that a person named Beatrice actually exists? Yes. She has been working for the master since before the mansion was built on this island. Most likely she has been working for him even longer than I have. What do you know? Kirie-san's theory was off. Grandfather really did have a confidant called Beatrice. And she's on the island now? Yes. I believe that she is here. That's a vague way to say it. I guess that means you haven't seen her face today or yesterday. Yes. It is extremely difficult to say, but, Kanon-kun once again dropped his gaze, avoiding my eyes. Come on, don't just stop there. That's like freezing an inch before the blow. I urged him on jokingly. However, it looked like Kanon-kun was still unsure as to whether he should speak or not. Then Kumasawa-ba-chan whispered. You cannot see her face because Beatrice-sama has no form. Formless? She has no what? Beatrice-sama has no body. Therefore, unless Beatrice-sama wishes it, common people like us are not able to see her form. I have heard that the portrait shows what Beatrice-sama looked like back when she had a human form. I hear she often lingers in front of the portrait, yearning for her old form. Ooh. Oh. Beatrice-sama sometimes changes her form into glittering butterflies and shows herself. On the rare occasion that you spot them somewhere in the mansion, there is a rule that you absolutely mustn't chase after them. It is whispered that you will meet with disaster if you follow them. In fact, there was a servant who broke that rule and quit because of a great injury. Wait a sec, are you kidding me? Are you all serious about this?
バトラーさん
Battler-sama, Beatrice-sama has already arrived.
そのような
Such language may be unwise.
ベアトリーチェ様ご自身を冒涜される方を
Beatrice-sama
好
is
みま
not
せん
fond of those who profane
そ
her.
の存在を
If you
疑い
doubt her existence, you will surely meet with disaster.
バトラさん、
Battler-san, you
気持ち
probably
の悪
find
いお
this
話
story
と思うで
unpleasant.
すがね。
But you know what?
ベアトリーチェ様
Beatrice does exist,
Iru.
okay?
います
She exists. they're really they're like hammering it in, like, bro, I'm telling you. I'm fucking telling you. You need to know this. You're gonna drive yourself insane thinking the opposite. We're telling you now. This bitch exists. Just accept it.
それを疑われ
Beatrice
る
Sama has an exceptional dislike of that
ベア
being
トリー
called
チェ
into
様は
question.
ことのほか
わかりませんか
Don't you understand, Battler Sama?
ベアトリーチェ様
Beatrice Sama has already arrived here.
おいおい、よせ
Come
よ
on, quit it.
俺そういう
I'm
の
weak against
弱いんだ
stuff
ぜ
that stuff, you know?
脅しっこなし
You're
にしろ
freaking me out. However, there was no trace of a joke in the eyes of the three servants. On the surface, I laughed and tried to look unconcerned, but I was quickly starting to sober up. Their eyes were also sobering up
バ
fast.
トラさん、
Battler-san, I beg that you stop profaning
ベア
Beatrice
トリー
Sama.
チェ悪いことは
Please
申し
trust
上げ
me.
ます。
Kumasawa Bachan, who was usually cheerful and would always tease people, now spoke with a totally straight face that I had never known her to make. Well,
いるって言われても
sure, you say she
俺には
exists,
何も
but
見え
I
ない
don't
ぜ
see anything.
今
Are you trying to say that she's standing right next to me or something?
冗談よせ
Quit
やい
joking around. Right behind you. Oh, it's Maria. Just then, that unnerving laugh suddenly filled the kitchen. Yes, my girl. When I turned around, Maria was standing there by the entrance. But her expression and the feelings about her, her presence, felt exactly the same as the servants. This is what I hope my daughter is like. Exactly like this. Half the time, and half the time.
波長の合う合わないは生
Whether
ま
your
れつきだよ
wavelength matches or not is determined at birth.
バトラは生まれ
Battler,
つき
you were born
波
with
長
a
が合わない
mismatched
タイプなんだ
wavelength.
よだから見
That's
え
why
ない
you can't see her,
会えない
can't meet with her,
話せない
can't talk to her.
ベアトリーチェの
You're the
一番
type
嫌いな
Beatrice
タイプ
hates
だ
the
よ
most.
Maria's laugh sounded like she was greatly enjoying herself, yet it was extremely eerie. It was almost like she was laughing at me because I alone didn't understand. Yeah, she is.
ベアトリーチェのこと
Do you
が知
want
り
to
た
know
い
about Beatrice?
ベアトリーチ
Beatrice is
ェ
a
はね
thousand-year-old witch.
千年のあらゆる悪魔を
She has
刺
all
激
the
し
demons at her
錬金術を
command and
極
can
め
harness the
賢
power
者
of
の意志を生
alchemy
み
to
出し
create the
莫大
philosopher's
な黄金を
stone
生
and
み
a
出すことが
vast
できる
quantity of gold.
おじい様は彼女と契
Grandfather
約
built
する
up
ことで
all of the vast
後ろ
wealth
宮家
of
に
the
莫大な
Ushiromiya
富を
family
築
by
いたん
making
だ
a
よ
contract with her.
昨日私がベアトリ
Yesterday,
ーチェ
I
の手
read
紙を読んだ
Beatrice's
でしょ
letter, didn't I?
あれは本
That
当
was
なんだよ
real.
ま
Well,
バトラ
I
に
guess
信
it's
じろと言っ
pointless
て
for
も
me to try
無
and
理な
force you
話
to
だろうけど
believe.
六感が
After all, it
生まれ
looks
つ
like
き
you
さ
were
っぱり
born
みたい
without a
だからね
trace of the sixth sense.
なんだよ
What are you talking about?
魔女
Witches?
悪魔
Demons?
そんなの
Who
誰
told
に聞
you
いたんだ
that?
よ
ベアトリー
I
チ
heard
ェ
it
本
from
人に聞い
Beatrice
たんだよ
herself.
Maria kept doing that unpleasant laugh. However, the servants who watched over this didn't even blink. She heard it from that witch in the portrait adorning the entrance hall. Maria kept on laughing in a weird voice, as though this was nothing more or less than the truth.
マリア
Maria, it might be rude to ask, but I'll ask one more time, okay? Can you stop making that fucking laugh at me? Who gave you that letter yesterday?
ベアト
I
リーチェ
got
にもらっ
it
たっ
from
て
Beatrice.
何度言えば
How
わか
many
るかな
times must I tell you before you understand?
わかんない
You
よ
don't
ね
get it, do you?
見えないんだ
You
もん
can't
ね
see her, I know.
信じら
You
れない
can't
もん
believe
ね
it, I know.
Just then, Maria's laughter suddenly stopped.
バトラ
Battler,
まだわかんな
You
い
still can't tell
ベアトリーチ
that
ェ
Beatrice
いるの
exists.
いるって
she exists, you say, but where?
だから
Like I
Beatrice
said,
が
Beatrice
ここにいるんだ。
exists right here.
That's right. Now that I think about it, I've been feeling for some time now that the others haven't been looking in quite the right direction. I'd figured that everyone had just been gazing into the distance, but That wasn't the case. The four here, Genji-san, Kanon-kun, Kumasawa-san, and Maria, everyone except me, was looking at a spot right behind me. Holding my breath tightly, I slowly looked over my shoulder. Of course, there wasn't anyone there. I've known that the whole time. However, everyone in the room except me was focusing on that point as if there was someone there. Man, that's fucking creepy.
Beatrice is a great witch of gold who has lived for 1,000 years. But she can't show her form to humans of the wrong wavelength, and she can't talk to them. And you know what? She finds that really sad. That's why she truly despises it when people like you, who are born without a fragment of magic sensitivity, deny that she exists. You're lucky, battler. Good thing I gave you that charm yesterday, right? Who knows what kind of curse Beatrice would have put on you by now if you hadn't been carrying it around. You really are lucky, battler.
Right, that scorpion key holder. I thought that was just some cheap gift or something, but I guess it really had some benefit then.
If it weren't for that, you'd be lying in that storehouse as a sacrifice with your face crushed by now. You're so lucky, battler.
I see. So if it weren't for that, I'd have been killed by now?
Battler, why don't you believe in Beatrice? Even though she exists. Right now, over there. Look. Hey, I'll bet you want to believe it now. Believe it. And thank you for giving me that charm. If it weren't for that, you'd be in the storehouse right now. But then maybe you would have saved someone else in exchange, right?
Right then, I burst into laughter. Playing witches had been pretty fun up until a second ago, but unfortunately that last one didn't quite hit the mark. It's not no goddamn good at all, is it, Maria? If that's true, then I'm sorry, but it's no goddamn good at all. When Maria saw me suddenly start laughing, she stopped. Even though she didn't understand what I was laughing at, she realized it wouldn't be pleasant for her. I thought it might hurt you, so I didn't say it earlier, but although I thought I'd put that charm you gave me in my pocket, I must have dropped it somewhere, you see? And that means the charm can't be the reason I'm alive now, and even though I should have been cursed by the witch, I'm perfectly fine. Sorry, but I don't believe in things I don't see with my own eyes. Sixth sense, wavelengths, magic sensitivity. Sorry, but I don't believe in fake stuff like that. When I hear the girls in class start talking about how good or bad their ability to sense the supernatural is, it pisses me off. Best guy ever over here. I don't know how much grandfather is paying you, but if you're trying to talk me into joining some cult, believe me, you won't be able to do that easily. Battler-sama. You guys are free to believe whatever you want. But when it comes to whether I believe or not, that is always for me to decide. Sorry, but I can't believe in something as shady as Beatrice until I've seen her with my own eyes. I spoke forcefully and sharply. When I did, Maria started cackling again.
Well, that's just fine, isn't it? Eventually, even people like you with totally mismatched wavelengths will be able to see Beatrice. Very soon she will revive. Beatrice will revive. Once that happens, she's promised to talk with me and play with me a lot. There's neither a need to doubt nor to force yourself to believe. She will appear very soon.
Some people usually head to the bathroom after a meal. Others prefer to take a short nap. But me, I go the distance. I go all the way. I just keep on trucking right on through. It seemed that several people had gone out of the parlor just like I did when I went to the kitchen to drink some water. In the end, Aunt Nazi's order was to keep everyone packed together in the parlor was reluctantly withdrawn under the conditions that no one was to be out on their own, and no one was to go far from the parlor. After all, if 11 people are shut up in the same room starting early in the morning, the air will start to stagnate. Now that a little time had passed, everyone had started to recover from the shock of that morning. Maybe their sense of danger was weakening over time, too. However, it was a certain fact that 6 people had been killed inside this mansion, so no one was completely negligent. So when they went out into the hallway for a breath of fresh air trying to act tough, they would get scared of standing there isolated and would end up returning to the parlor. Like that fable, the north wind and the sun? Not really, no. If you force someone to stay shut in, they'll resist, but if you tell them to do whatever they want, they'll come back obediently. People sure are hypocrites. When the servants finished cleaning up from the meal, they returned obediently to the parlor just as Aunt Nazi had told them to and sat in a sofa near the entrance, patiently awaiting orders. Maria, almost as though she had suddenly finished playing witches, had returned to the pure Maria I knew well, saying, "Ooh, ooh." What in the world was that back there? I hadn't felt even an atom of the presence of this person called Beatrice, supposedly standing behind me, invisible. However, it felt like inside Maria I could catch a glimpse of a little of that presence. You're right. When Maria-chan starts talking about witches, she changes. Battler-kun, you also saw it down by the beach yesterday, right? You mean when she gave me that scorpion key holder? No, I don't mean like when her feelings were hurt. I'm talking about when she looked like she had, a dual personality. Ah, that happens sometimes too. Just like when Maria started talking about the magic circle. Not very often, but it happens. It's freaky though. Apparently, according to Jessica, the key laughing Maria shows up every now and then. This was just bad timing, and furthermore, it was the first time I'd seen it, so it really shocked me. So what is that? Does Maria have a dual personality or something? Or are you saying that her spiritual sense really is that strong and she gets possessed by stuff like that? No, I don't think it's that. Didn't you ever experience it? A desire to be someone other than yourself when you were small? Right when humans are born, no one has any individuality. Oh. However, when they reach their growth period and their sense of self starts to be born, they start to gain a sense of individuality. They want to be different from other people. But of course, they will find that they're no different from the others in their class, since they are learning the same thing in school and forced into the same lifestyle. When they realize that, they start off by breaking the rules in what's called the rebellious age, or chunibyo. Since everyone follows the rules, they want to show off their individuality by breaking them. Even those who call everyone around them babies and stir up trouble are just cute kids searching for themselves when you look at them this way. Well, I'm lecturing about all this like I'm so smart, but I actually got it secondhand from George Eineke. I myself was one of those embarrassing guys who thought it was cool to act like a little bastard. Well, that was when I was the age where you try standing out for the opposite sex. I mean, you are still doing all of this, Battler. You've not grown up that much. The very foundation of the growing period is an impulse to escape from being a kid, much the same as a chick trying to crack the shell of their egg. Do you know what the difference between a child and an adult is? Age? Or physique? No, it's experience. Adults look down on children because children have very little life experience. The reason they snort and look down on children whenever they say anything is because children don't know anything about the world. Yeah, I know what you mean. When you're a kid, you try to say things like you've got a life all figured out and try to act like an adult. No matter what a kid says, adults will just snort at them because they're too naive or because they'd understand it once they grew up or something. Yeah, that just means they're bad at talking to their kids. Well, it's probably true, but to a kid, it's just annoying, like they're being looked down upon. Well, they are. I get it. It's about whether they have knowledge and experience. You're right, you don't earn respect just by becoming old and not achieving anything. Therefore, what we have is a period where they have the impulse to escape from being a kid, and also they want to have individuality different from other people. If what separates kids and adults is knowledge and experience, then I get it. If they know something that no one else knows, that's one way to form an identity. Look at it all, y'all. When you're in like elementary school, you knew stuff no one else knew, had stuff no one else had, wore stuff no one else wore, you could become a bit of a hero for it, or a total fucking freak. I bet you did the same thing, Battler. Yeah. There was definitely an age when I wanted to excel in something. I see. That was because I was trying to separate myself from being a child, my growing period.
健全な意味での成
If you
長
look
期
at
は
it in a good way, the
そうして
growing
没個
period,
性
by
を
forcing you
脱
to
却するた
separate
めに
yourself from others, pushes
人
you
が
to
持た
gain
ない知
skills
識や
and
スキ
knowledge
ルを
that
身
no
に
one
つける
else
ことを
has.
これは
This
社
is
会
also
学的に
interesting
も
from a
面白いことだ
sociological
よ
standpoint.
人が没個性を
Because
嫌うため
people
に
hate
人
being
と
like
違う
everyone
技
else,
術
they
を身
try
に
to
つけ
learn
ようと
skills
す
that
る
other people
こ
don't
れによ
know.
り
In
社
this
会
way,
は
society can
幅広い
acquire
技
the
術を
broad
獲
range of
得して
skills it
立
needs
脚
to
する神
survive.
々の高度
The
なプログラ
quality
ム
of the
に
gods'
驚
programming
か
is
される
truly
ね
surprising. Man, that is the most like supportive worldview I could think of. Like, this is like the way I think, but I think of it more like, I don't know, like it's less obvious in the way he's making it sound, you know? Anyway.
まあ
Well,
個性が
individual
ネガティブに働く
personalities
こ
can
ともあ
also
る
be
ぜ
negative,
クラ
right?
スみんなが真
Like
剣に
saying
勉強し
everyone
てる
else
か
in
ら
the class is
俺だ
studying
けはサ
hard,
ボっ
so
て
I'll
んのが
slack
こう
off
と
so
か
I
よ
stick out. That was actually me. That was only recently that I'd finally been able to feel thankful towards that middle school teacher who had slapped me after school.
でもまあ
But, well, I
誰も
did
飛べない
have
飛び
those
箱を
desires
飛
to
んでやり
jump
たい
over
と
the
は
vaulting box that no one else
成績
could,
のいい連
or
中を
sprint as
週刊
fast
予
as I
定に
could
させてや
trying
る
to
ぜ
lap
っ
those
て
guys with
マラ
good
ソンで
grades
全
when we
力疾
did a
走
marathon.
勉強はダメだっ
It
たか
was in my nature that if I
少なくと
couldn't
も
study
運動で
well,
は
then at
見返
least
し
I
て
could
やる
go
ぜ
back,
っ
get
て
back
根
at them
性
by
は
exercising.
なるほど
I get it. I really
ちゃん
went
と
all
成
out
長期
during
しな
my
いと
growing period.
男子って
I
や
guess
っぱり
boys do
肉
tend
体
to
的な
focus
方
more
面
on
に関
physical
心で
things.
もよ
But
同
you
じ時
know,
期に
girls
私
of the
は
same age
精
tend to
神
focus
的な
more on
面におけ
emotional
モトラ
things.
のクラスの知
I'll
識
bet there
も
were groups of girls in your
占いとか
classes
霊
that were
能と
really
か
interested in
そんな
like
こと言ってる
fortune
女子
telling
連
and
中
their
のグループ
spiritual
はあったりした
senses.
ああ
Yeah,
あった
yeah,
あった
there was, there
人の
was.
星座と
They'd
か
come
血
over
液型とか
asking
聞
me
いて
for
き
my
て
sign and my
あ
blood
あ
type,
や
and
っ
then they'd
ぱり
laugh.
く
Ah, I
そ
thought so. Yeah.
とか笑わ
It
れる
really
と
got on my
お
nerves.
いどこのクラスに行
No
っても
matter which
女
class
子
you
は
go to,
占いが
girls
少
like
し
fortune
決まっ
telling.
て霊感に
There was
強いだの
always a
弱い
group
だ
that
の
went on
感
about
受
the
性が
spirit
どうこ
sense as
う
being
見えないも
strong
の
or
が見
weak,
え
or
ちまうだ
sensitivity, or
そ
seeing
んな
things that
艶や
can't be
かな
seen.
占いも霊感も
That's because
学校
fortune
では
telling and
教え
spiritual
ないものだ
senses
か
are
らね
things that aren't taught in school.
男の子と違い
To girls who,
内向
unlike
的な
guys,
世
are
界
more
にそれはアイ
introverted,
デンティティを
that's a
確
genre
立し
which
やす
is
くて
easy to build an
かつ
identity
興
upon,
味
and
深
one
い
that
ジャ
they
ンルなん
find
だよ
very interesting. Obviously, if you're autistic, you just pick like anime or some specific fucking video game.
男子が成長期
Just
に
like
入
when
ると
boys enter their
昨
growing
日言わ
period
れ
and
事と
start
して
acting tough
大
and
人や
rebelling
反
against
女子の
adults,
成
when
長期に
girls
入
enter
る
their
と
growing
そう
period,
いう
they
のに
start
興
getting
味が出
interested
る
in
よう
that
になるん
kind
だ
of
よ
thing instead.
私はそうでも
Well,
なかっ
not
たけど
me
さ
though. I'm not like other girls.
つま
So
り
Maria having so much
マリア
interest
が
in the
オカルト
occult,
に
isn't
関
that
心を
rare
持つの
among
か
girls her age? Even if you accept that, I wonder if it explains that creepy dual personality thing. Well, I think I can accept it vaguely.
さっきも言った通り
As I said before,
大人になる
becoming an
というの
adult
は
means gaining
知
knowledge
識
and
や経験を
experience.
持
I
つこ
think
とを言う
probably there's a lot more going on with Maria than trying to create like an identity or whatever, or, you know, going through growing pains. I think maybe there's some real fracture trauma going on in that little brain of hers. As I said before, becoming an adult means gaining knowledge and experience.
それを
So
得る
kids
ため
must
に
study
子
various
供たち
things
は
so
い
that they
ろいろ
can
なこ
gain
とを学
knowledge
ん
and
で
truly
子
awaken.
ど子供の世界に
There is a specific kind of
今も
fantasy
昔も
useful for
はびこっている
this, which is and
あ
has
る
always
便利
been
な妄
prolific
想が
in
あ
the
るんだ
world
よ
of
わかる
children.
かい
Do you know what that is?
漫画やアニメに
You
多
see
い
it
だ
all the
ろ
time in manga
ほ
and
らあ
anime,
れだよ
right?
前
You
世の
know,
記
like
憶が蘇っ
memories coming
て
back
と
to you
か
from a former life,
偉大なる何と
or
かの
like
魂
channeling
が
the
乗り
soul
移
of
っ
the great
て
whatever.
ああ
There's
他
also
にも遺
sleeping
伝子が
genes
覚
and
醒したり封
awakening,
印されてい
or
た能
sealed
力や
powers or
記憶や
memories
らが戻
returning.
っ
There's
た
a
り
lot of
と
versions.
かどういうわけかあの時期はそういうのが
For
やた
some
らと
reason,
流行
those
るもん
kind of
さ
things are really popular at that age. Yeah, now it's rebirth isekai. Specifically.
どうしてだな
Why is that?
今挙げた
Amy
キーワードはすべて
All of those
子供の自分に
examples you've just mentioned are fantasies by which children can immediately add knowledge and experience to their childhood
9歳
selves.
の女の子も
Even a 9-year-old
1000
girl
年を生きた魔
simply
女
has
が
to say that she has a
私に憑依
1,000-year-old
してい
witch
るという
possessing her,
19
and
歳
she
の
can
アイデン
gain
テ
a
ィティが得られるわけだね。
1,009-year-old identity.
まあつまり
So what you're
勉強
saying is
する
that
の
for
は
people
面
who
倒
think
くさい
studying is
でも人と
annoying,
は違
but
う
want
ス
to
キルを
learn
持って
different skills
周
from
りに
everyone
威張り
else
た
and
い
brag about it
ち
and
や
get
ほやされ
attention
たい
from it,
っ
it's
て
a
いう連中に
convenient
とっては
solution.
便
God
利な妄想なんだよ
damn,
な。
Jessica, holy fuck. That's her best line in the whole game so far. So you can brag about something without having to work hard or study. I see. Isn't that a kid's greatest dream?
あとは子供からの脱却願望には必ず自分の理想像の自己
Furthermore,
投
their
影
ideal
が行わ
self-image
れ
is always self-projected onto their desires to escape from being a
その
kid.
願望の
And
姿
it's
が
not rare for that
別人
desire
格
to
として
form
形
to
成される
become
ことが少なくない。
established as an alternate. It's not rare for that desire to form to become established as an alternate personality. That's an awkward phrase.
バトラ君だって
Even
家
you,
と学校
Battler
で
Q, and
は
I'm sure your
多少
character
キ
is
ャ
a
ラク
little
ターが
different
違
at
うと
home
い
and
う
at
ことがあ
school,
る。多
right?
分
It
家で
would
の自
probably
分
be
の姿を
embarrassing if anyone
ク
at
ラスの
school
友人
saw
た
us
ち
how
に
you
見せ
were
る
at
のは
home.
学校の自分
At
は
school, you try to
自分の
project
なりたい
yourself as
姿
you
の
want
投
to
影
be,
で
but home is where
家
you
の
are
自
your
分
true
は
self.
つまり
So, in other words,
キャ
I'm
ラクター
changing
の
my
使い
character
分
for
け
different
というか
situations.
人格の多重化が
Are you trying to say that
ごく
having
ごく
multiple
当たり前だという
personalities is
のか
actually really common? That's kind of my take.
オカルトが好きな女
A
子
girl
は
who is a fan
そ
of the
れを
occult
憑依
might
と
say
言っ
that
たり
she's being
覚醒
possessed
と
or
言った
has
りと正
awakened.
直
Honestly, there are
ドン引きす
some
るくらい
kids
の
who
キャ
can
ラを
change
変
their
える子もいるよ
personality so drastically it can change your whole opinion of them.
男子にもいるだろ
Even some boys,
切
right?
れたとか言って
Guys who just
や
blow
たら
their
めったら
top and
クソ
get
ボケ
violent
許
over
しまれ
nothing. I bet
本
they
人は
think
か
it's
っこ
pretty
いいと
cool,
思
but
っ
it's
てるんだろ
painful
う
to
けど
watch.
つまりおさら
So
い
let's
する
sum
と
this all
マ
up.
リアくらいの年
Girls
頃
of
の
about
女の子
Maria's
は
age, even if they
さ
show
っ
a
きみた
creepy
いな
second
不気味な二重
personality
人
like
格
she
のよ
did
う
a
なも
minute
の
ago,
それほど珍
so you're
しいもの
saying
じゃ
that's
ない
not such a rare thing?
簡単にまとめると
If you
そう
bring
い
it
う
all
ことだ
together
ね。
simply, that's what it
Identity
means.
は
Identity
自己
is
を
an
形成
important
するた
thing
めの
used to
大
build
切
up
なも
one's
の。
sense of self.
それをバカにした
If
り
you
する
make
と
fun of that, it could
かえって
actually
その
cause
殻に
children to
閉じ
go
こもって
back
し
into
まう
their
と
shell.
だから
So it's
ほどほど
important
に
to
付き
go
合って
along
あげ
with
るの
them to
が
some
大切。それ
degree,
を丸ごと受
although
け
to
入れてあげ
accept
る
it
のが
completely requires the
親の
tolerance
包
of a
容力と
parent.
いうもの。
Heineke, I can't
そ
believe
れで
you
独
aren't
身って
married.
信じられねえぜ
My dog. He was like 5 minutes away.
もう子供が中
You
学くら
sound
い
like
に
you've
上がって
already
そうな
raised
貫
kids
禄
through
さ
middle school.
じゃあ
Then I
ローザおば
wonder
さん
if Auntie Rosa
あの
also
マリアの
knew
二重人格に
so
つい
much
ては
about
よく知
Maria's
ってい
dual
たのか
personality.
知ってたぜ
She knew.
ここだけの話
Just between us, Auntie
ロー
Rosa
ザお
couldn't
ばさんは
friggin'
すっ
stand
ごく
it.
気持ち悪いし
She said it was
クラス
creepy
で
and
ま
it
す
was
ます
just
孤立を
making
深め
Maria
る
more
だ
and
けだ
more separated from the rest of the class.
だから
So anytime
Maria
Maria started talking about the occult or laughing
魔
like
女
a
みたい
witch,
な
she'd
声で
slap
笑い
her.
出したりす
God
ると
damn.
必
I'm
ず
sure that
喧嘩して
helps.
たぜだからマリアも
And it looks like Maria stopped talking that way in front of her. Maybe it was just a little game from a girl facing her growing period. That thing that had happened back there. Just a girl trying to show that she was different and independent by holding an interest in witches and the occult. And since she wanted to have another side to herself that wasn't infantile, she was switching between her normal personality and the personality of her ideal, a witch. Maria is the most relatable character I've ever heard of. In the beginning, I had found that very disturbing, but after George Heineke's lecture, it felt like this was a path that everyone walked down at one time or another. I haven't told anyone, but when I was in kindergarten, I joined up with a little gang of kids trying to form an Earth Defense Force, saying we'd help protect peace on Earth. My face turns when I remember how, during what we called battle practice, we would chant EDF, EDF. Just like usual, Maria was relaxing, immersed in the TV, oohing and laughing just like any girl her age. No other girl her age is sitting in front of the TV going, ooh, and laughing maniacally. But on the inside, another personality, that of the ideal witch that she admired and blindly accepted, was sleeping. But that wasn't anything extraordinary. It was perfectly natural for a girl of her age. No. Don't let George gaslight you into thinking this shit is normal. Oh, man. I missed the third episode of your playthrough. Are there plans to have it back on the channel? I will probably edit it and put it up here. It's on Twitch. You could, actually, I don't know if it's still up on Twitch because it only lasts a week each VOD. It's on Twitter for now, but I'll try to get it up on YouTube. I calmed down a little. I had started to recover from the shock of my bizarre experiences in the kitchen. If I hadn't talked to Aniki and Jessica, I might have still been frightened by the idea that an invisible witch was standing right behind me. However, can I really accept that as an explanation of what happened back there? If it had just been Maria, I could have explained it as the fickle fantasies of a growing girl. But Genji-san, Kanon-kun, and Kumasawa-ba-chan had also been there. None of them had denied what Maria said. They had silently accepted that Beatrice exists. I was starting to feel a little uneasy. Auntie Ava had claimed that no 19th person exists, saying that someone within the family had committed the crime in connection with their messy quarrel. On the other hand, Aunt Nazi had claimed that the culprit was hiding somewhere outside the mansion. That meant that she was denying that the crime had been committed by one of us and accepting that a 19th person exists. And in the kitchen, Maria and the servants had agreed that a 19th person exists. But according to them, this 19th person isn't human. They had said that it was an invisible witch plotting something mysterious. Is there a 19th person or not? And is the culprit a human or a witch? For some reason, I couldn't just laugh off any of the possibilities, not even the most ridiculous one about the witch. Jessica, all I know about the story of the witch is that it was a story made by the adults to keep the kids too scared to enter the forest. But is it different here in the mansion? I'm with you on this. I think it was just a dumb ghost story made by the parents so their kids would listen to them. But I can't deny that the atmosphere inside the mansion makes it a little hard to say it out loud. Because grandfather has proclaimed that Beatrice does exist, and because of their position, the servants can't doubt that. Jessica's mother and father don't want to get into a fight with him either, so on the surface they go along with it. So you could probably say that inside this mansion, doubting the existence of Beatrice is a kind of taboo, unlike the rest of us who only come here once a year. Is that right? Jessica puffed out an air in admiration. It looked like Eineke had guessed right. You've got it totally. No one really believes it on the inside, but on the outside they accept she exists. See, it's just like the way some people are about gods. Even if you know there's actually no such thing, it feels rude to actually say that out loud. Feels rude to admit that you don't actually believe in God. That's hilarious. How do you think the servants feel about it amongst themselves? Is it true that since grandfather who employs them says she exists, they have to go along with it? Well, I don't really know the details. But between the servants, the story about Beatrice has been treated a bit like a ghost story. Remember yesterday when Shannon was talking to us down by the beach about how they saw unsettling things while doing the rounds in the mansion at night? She had said something like that, hadn't she? Back then I didn't give it much thought, assuming she was just going along with the displeased Maria. But now that I think about it, she did say that, and completely seriously. That's right. She definitely said it. She definitely said the same kind of thing that Genji-san and the rest had all unanimously declared back in the kitchen.
In addition, some servants have also seen will-o'-the-wisps and glittering butterflies dancing around. Kanon-kun also said he saw something like that when we went patrolling out one night. And recently, the servants have been talking about strange footsteps inside the mansion near midnight. We have whispered together that the Beatrice-sama from the portrait sometimes walks through the mansion invisible. It happened a long time ago, but I have also heard those kinds of footsteps while patrolling at night.
That's right. She definitely said that. Exactly the same thing that I had been told just now.
But there's nothing to be afraid of, you know. Beatrice-sama is another ruler of this mansion separate from the master. So she won't do anything bad as long as you respect her and don't act oddly afraid. Or else she'll stab 6 of us in the face, including me.
However, she's fearsome if you don't respect her, right?
Yes. I heard that someone who quit just before I began working, after falling down the stairs and receiving a large injury to their back, had been speaking badly of Beatrice-sama. Because of that, there was a rumor between the servants that Beatrice-sama's anger had been brought down upon this person.
If you don't respect her, her anger will be brought down upon you and you'll be injured. So to the servants, Beatrice's existence is just as credible as that story that if you pull pranks on Inari-san, you'll be cursed by the Kitsune. Of course, even though everyone accepts that curses and the like don't exist in the modern era, people are still afraid and still have a little respect for them. You see it a lot, even in residential areas, such as when someone is building a house and they call a Shinto priest for a ceremony to honor the god of that plot of land. You might think that's just a big waste of time and money, but the workers say that a big accident will occur if they don't do it, so they apparently never neglect the procedure. You also hear about how if an Inari shrine is carelessly removed during a town replanning, there would be a curse by Kitsune-sama. I think I might have read somewhere that when the occupying forces were trying to expand an airport and had to remove an Inari-san that was in the way, all of the workers were suddenly taken out by some mysterious fever. Even in modern cities like Tokyo, it isn't rare to see modern buildings packed all around an old Inari shrine, leaving the shrine itself untouched. And this isn't limited to Japan. It's probably similar to how people baptize babies. If I remember correctly, by the Christian doctrine, unbaptized souls, though their sin is the lightest, still fulfill the conditions for going to hell. Oh, fuck. Putting water on a child's forehead doesn't do anything but make them cry. But if a parent can prevent their child from going to hell with just that little effort, they will happily go through with that ceremony. Yeah? In short, even in this modern society of reason, we are still unable to throw away every trace of belief and fear. You could say that it's a passive acceptance of the supernatural. Maybe the only difference on this island was that Beatrice was the name that was respected here.
じゃあつまり
So, in other words,
この島で
if anything happens that doesn't seem explainable in human terms, it's called the work of Beatrice. I think Shannon-chan was talking about windows and doors that had definitely been properly shut or locked being open the next time they were checked. Lights that had been off being on and lights that had been on being off. And if I remember right, Jessica, you used to joke that it was Beatrice's doing that you couldn't find your bag sometimes when you went to leave in the morning, right? Good memory. Normally you'd say a fairy took them, but on this island it's Beatrice. Man, what a stupid story.
このお屋敷も築
She's
30
gonna
年くらいに
fucking
なりそうだ
die. This mansion has been standing for about 30 years by now, hasn't it?
それだけになれば
It's natural for things that old to get their fair share of ghosts and occult
学
stories,
校の七不思
like
議なんか
the
のよう
seven
にね
mysteries at a school.
そこで
So here
チェス盤をひっ
is
く
where
り
we
返
flip
す
over the chessboard. Oh shit! Flip that motherfucking chessboard over, baby! Flip that board! Huh?
つまり
Basically, on
この
this
島で
island, there's a rule that
人間に
Beatrice
は
could
で
be
きない
blamed
こと
for
は
anything
ベ
that
アト
couldn't
リー
have
チェ
been
の
done
仕業
by
と人
humans.
間にはできない
Anything that the humans
人間は
can't
何
do.
人だ
How many humans are
18
there?
だ
There's
つまり
18.
犯人
In
は
other words, the culprit is modeling
この島の
things
ルール
after
に
this
のっとって
rule, trying to make it appear
こ
that
の
this
事件は
crime
魔
was the
女の
work of
妻
the
にそれ
witch.
は
In short, they
19
desperately
人目
want
の
to
仕
claim
業
this
で
as the
すよ
doing
と
of a
う
19th
る
person. I don't
気
like
に
it.
入らねえぜ全
I
然気に入
really
らね
don't like it.
気に入らないって
What don't
何が
you
だよ
like?
え仮に
Just assume that an invisible 19th person existed and that this person wanted to make it known that they
これなら
existed.
もっと
If it
完
were
璧
me,
なタイ
I'd
ミン
do
グ
it
で
with
や
more
る
perfect timing.
完璧なタイミングで
What do you
って
mean
の
by
は
perfect
どういう
timing?
あ
Well, after all, the crime took place after midnight while it was still dark, right? People were talking together until midnight. Some people had the night shift, and some people had returned to their rooms and were sleeping. Everyone's alibi is really vague, and there's plenty of room to suspect that the crime was committed by one of us.
ジョージの兄貴も
George Arikiyati Ava probably told you too, right? That there's a good chance that one of us is the culprit?
うん
Yes,
まあね
I guess.
つまり
In other words, if the 19th person really existed and wanted to show themselves, this first crime was a complete failure. No, in the first place, the timing was a mistake.
不可視の19
If
人
this
目をアピー
invisible
ルするため
19th
に
person really wanted to show themselves, they had to make sure that the crime took place under conditions which proved that the remaining 12 people were all innocent.
疑わしい人間が
Unless
ゼ
there
ロ
are
にな
no
るわけ
suspicious humans, they can't prove that they exist. So by killing them in the middle of the night when everybody's alibi was at its most ambiguous, whether or not this 19th person exists was also at its most ambiguous. Even so, they chose that time to commit the crime.
そんな時間に
By
犯行を
committing
起
the
こ
crime
せば
then, it's obvious that one of the
18人
18
の誰
would
か
be
が疑われ
suspected.
にもかかわらず
Yet they took the name of the witch and handed Maria the letter, and everyone denies doing it.
誰
つまり
In other words, you're trying to say that one of the 18 is trying to make it look like a 19th person called Beatrice
18
exists?
なんだかぶっ飛んだ
That's pretty
発想だな
crazy.
まだおふく
I
ろ
think
に
my mom's theory that someone is hiding outside the mansion is a little more credible.
まさかバトラーは
Battler, don't tell me you actually suspect that someone in this room is the culprit.
あ
Yeah,
あ何者かが
someone trying to force us to accept that Beatrice exists. Maria, then.
そうさ
That's right. The letter last night is when this whole thing
目
started.
撃証拠も
I don't have any
根拠も
basis or
何もねえ
proof, but with the chessboard upside down, this is my best guess. Is it supposed to be upside down or turned around? Seriously, that's too crazy. Haven't you been reading too many weird detective novels?
でも、無視
But
で
it
きな
does
い
hit on a
着眼
point
点
that we
もある
can't ignore.
19人目が
Whether
いる
there's
か
a
いないか
19th
はで、
person
そ
or
の犯人
not,
は
the culprit is
確実に
definitely
この
planning
島のル
something
ールに
based
のっ
around
とって
that rule
何
about
か
this
どうか
island.
ね。
Just now,
今
listening to
バトラー
Battler
君の
Kun
話を
talk, I
聞いてい
remembered
て
something that's a little disturbing.
気持ち悪いこと
Something disturbing? Tell me more.
覚え
Yes.
てるかい
Do you remember
ベ
it?
アトリーチェの手紙
Beatrice's
ベア
letter.
トリーチェ
It
は
said that
利
Beatrice
子の
was going
監
to
修を
collect
そして利
interest.
子は
And as for what that
後ろ
interest
宮家
is,
の
it
全
said
てだと言った
everything of the Ushiromiya family. Jessica and I thought back on what Maria had read aloud the previous night. It said
確
that.
かに言ってた
It definitely
そ
said
して
that.
利子の
That
回
the
収をこれ
collecting
か
of the
ら行
interest
う
would
は
now take place,
黄金
but
の
if the
謎を
riddle
解
of the
いた
gold could be
その
solved,
権
she
利を
would
失う
lose
とも言っ
that
てたわ
right.
おじい様は黄金を
Grandfather was
授かり
granted the gold, and the
後ろ
Ushiromiya
宮家の
house
つま
prospered.
り黄金を
Basically,
資本
Beatrice
に
is
生み
saying
出し
that
たもの
everything he
全て
birthed
が
from
利
that
子だっ
gold
て
counts as
つ
interest.
まり
In other words,
冗談きつい
that's
ぜ
pretty scary for a joke,
ま
Ainiki.
さか
Don't tell me that everything of the Ushiromiya
Sorry.
family, in other words, everything that grandfather gave birth to, refers to everyone with grandfather's blood flowing in their
あの
veins.
手紙をそう読み解
If
いた
you read the
ら
letter that
この殺
way,
人は
those murders are just
ベアト
Beatrice
リーチェが行
legitimately
った
collecting
そなれば
interest. If that's the
この
case,
事
these
件は
crimes
ま
will
だ利子の
continue,
回収は
because the collection of
まだ
interest
途中
is
なんだ
still
から
only
ね
halfway completed. George turned around, looking over the parlor. There were still many people who held the name Ushiromiya, and we knew that since Goda-san and Shenin-chan had been killed, not even the servants who didn't bear the name Ushiromiya would be spared. Are we
私たち全員
all gonna be
殺
killed?
すつもりかいでもお
But
かしい
that's
よジョージ
weird,
兄さん
George Nisan.
ならどうして
Why
6
only
人だ
6
け
people then?
他に大勢
They
殺
could
せ
have
るは
killed
ず
a lot more.
下手をすれば
In the worst case, it
中身を
might
知って
even have been
全員を
possible
ひ
for
と
them
ま
to
ず殺すこ
assault
と
us
も可能
all
だ
while
った
we
は
were
ず
sleeping and kill everyone in a single night.
どうしてそれをしなかった
Why
の
didn't they do that?
特別条項だよ
That special
黄
clause.
金の謎を
If
暴く
someone
者
managed
が
to solve
現
the
れた
riddle
ら
of the gold,
利子の
the
権利
right
は
to the
失われ
interest
る
would be
そ
lost.
して
And
手
remember
紙
how
の
the
最後
very
には
last part of the
法
letter
つまりおじい
concluded?
様の黄金
It
の
said
謎を
for everyone to
みんな
try
で
and
解いて
solve
み
the
ろって
riddle of grandfather's gold. Is this somebody gonna finally remember that like the first fucking line of the riddle is about 6 people dying?
ジーザス
Jesus!
ようやく犯人の
It
メッ
looks
セージ
like
が
we're
分かっ
finally
てきた
getting
じゃねえ
close to
か
understanding the culprit's message. In other words, the culprit is telling us to try and solve the riddle on that epitaph grandfather had made. Furthermore, they're saying that if we just sit around, they'll keep collecting the interest. I realized that this was all based on several crazy guesses, but not everything that happens in this world is joined together in a perfect line. Most unknown phenomenon are nothing but individual points. By joining them together into lines, we deepen our understanding. The closer together the points at the end of those lines are, the more logical it is and the easier to understand. And the farther away they are, the more it lacks those qualities. That is why we use a distance analogy and call theories way out there. However, if you can only join up to small, limited distances away, we call it having a limited imagination. Is imagination different from reasoning? Was I just trying to force everything that I knew about the case to fit my simple imagination? No, that's not it. When you're searching around with your hands in the dark, that search is imagination. Only imagination can find the 2 points you should connect together. Reasoning is nothing more than the action of drawing the line between them. If you can't imagine, you can't reason. What I was doing might be out there, but it shouldn't be wrong either. Only the power of imagination can pull out a clue from the darkness, and the power of reasoning ties those clues together. It's a lot like the process of searching out an enemy's weak spot and striking. It's alright if it's crazy. Find the weak point first, then we can think about how to strike. Now is the time to find the points that we could tie together later. What a fucking... You think Battler always sits around like thinking about how logic works, or does he only do it when he's like has to? Like, is he figuring all this out in real time? Or is this just him like going through how he already thinks? For the time being, I put aside whether a 19th person exists and announced the theory that the goal of the culprit might have been to make us solve the riddle of the epitaph. Uncle Hideyoshi looked like he was really interested, but Aunt Natsuhi thought it was ridiculous. Of course. If you think about it that way, even that letter from yesterday makes sense. That motive seems to fit pretty well with the facts. Setting aside whoever it was that gave Maria-chan the letter.
Beatrice exists.
Even though she was puffing up her chest in that cute way she had been doing since yesterday, I couldn't think of it as cute. If I took it lightly, it might suddenly transform into a creepy laugh.
隠しようもなど
The
存
hidden
在しま
gold
せん。
doesn't exist. However, the idea that we have a culprit who foolishly believes otherwise, wants
それを
father's
私
gold,
た
and
ちに
whose
書か
motive
せ
is to make us solve
応
the
用を
riddle
企んでい
and
る
then
という
steal
動
the
機は
gold from us
なる
does
ほどとう
indeed
なず
make
ける
some
ものです。
sense.
しかし
However,
なら
in
ば
that
なぜ
case, why did they
後ろ
kill
宮家の
those most
主要な
highly
人物
ranked in
ば
the
かりを
Ushiromiya
最初に
family
殺
first?
道理ですな。
A good point.
謎を解か
If
せ
they
るなら
wanted to make us solve the
金蔵
riddle,
さんに
killing
近
those
しい
closest
人
to
物を先
Kinzo-san
に殺
doesn't
すこと
sound
は
like a good plan to me.
そうね。
I
そ
agree.
れに
Besides,
その
if we
論法で
follow
行くん
that
だった
argument,
ら
wouldn't it have
最
been
初に
quicker
お
if they
父
had
様を
threatened
脅
father in
迫
the
した方
first
が
place?
私たちに謎
You'd
を解
think it
か
would
せ
be
るよりも
faster to
本
just
人
ask the
に答
person
え
who
を
wrote
聞い
it
た方
rather
が
than to
早
try
い
to
はず
force
よ。
us to solve it.
確かにその通りや。
That's also a good
もっと
point.
も
Of course, I
お
don't think
父さ
that
んが
father would
並
let
大
it
抵
slip
の
from
脅
any
迫で
ordinary
口を
threat.
金蔵さんをよく知る
Anyone
方
who
なら
knows Kinzo-san
金
well
蔵さん
would
が
surely
並
be
大抵
aware
の
that
脅
he
しに
won't
は
bow to
屈し
ordinary
これだ
threats.
けの財産を持っ
He
て
is the man who
後
bears
宮
the
家を
burden
背
of the
負われる
Ushiromiya
方です。
family and all its
今
wealth.
日まで
He has been
様々
exposed to
な
many
攻撃や
threats and
脅迫
attacks
に
in the
さらされて
past.
それら全て
It
に
is
打ち勝って
because
き
he
た
was
から
able
こ
to
そ
overcome them that
今
the
日
family
の繁栄
prospers
があるので
today.
す。
God damn, she sounds the happiest she's ever sounded. Fucking dick riding Kinzo.
それに関しては私
Totally
もどう
agreed
か
on
うちの
that.
じい様
I
が
can't
脅されて
imagine her
何かに従
grandfather
うなん
letting
て
himself get pushed
ちょっと
around just
想像
because
も
some
つかない
asshole
ぜ。
threatened him.
ジェシカ、
Jessica, that
言
is
葉遣いが
not
は
how
した
we
ないです。
talk.
はい。
Yeah.
なら
In that case,
こういう
what
発想は
about
どうだ
this
よ。
one? No,
こ
wait.
れをぶっ
Is
飛ん
this
でな
out there as well? I couldn't hesitate. A crazy idea is like a bow and arrow. It might be hard to hit with, but it's a great weapon that can strike enemies from afar. Okay, fucking... I thought I stretched my fucking metaphors. This guy, man. Research shows that most people who have died in battles were killed by wounds from arrows. In a battle, you don't shoot off just one arrow. You shoot off a whole bunch of arrows at once and assault the enemy soldiers with a wall of them. So shoot them over and over. Assault the truth with a wall.
犯人が隠された黄
Assault
金
the
が狙い
truth with a wall. That was
俺たち
fucking... That should have
法
been
律が悪い
Trump 2016's fucking campaign slogan. Assault the truth with a wall. Oh boy. If the culprit is after the hidden gold, it would be very inefficient for them to force us to solve the
謎を
riddle.
作った本
Asking
人
the
に答えを
person
聞
who
く
made
方
it
が
in the
手っ
first
取り早
place
いぞ
would be much quicker and easier.
じゃあさ
In that case, the question is this all a message directed at grandfather? In other words, these murders were a threat directed at grandfather. If he didn't tell the culprit where the gold was, his family members would be killed off one by one. What if we weren't the only ones being forced to solve this riddle? What if grandfather was too? If you think about it that way, it explained grandfather's mysterious disappearance. If the culprit had attacked grandfather, then judging by the state the 6 bodies were left in, he would definitely have been displayed somewhere with that horrible makeup added. But despite that, we still hadn't found him. Did that mean that grandfather had been kidnapped and was being held somewhere?
そんな
How could...
まさか
You
そん
weren't
な
saying... How could... That sounds interesting. So father is being confined somewhere and being threatened that if he doesn't tell them the location of the gold, we will be killed off one by one.
その話のど
I
こが
struggle to
面白いの
understand what you find interesting about that. Aunt Nazi threatened her, but Auntie Ava just smiled
この
calmly.
時間になっても
Since
姿
we
を
still
現
haven't
さない
seen
で
him
しょ
after all this time, I
お
think
じ
that
い
it's
様が事
almost
件に
certain
巻き込
that
まれているの
grandfather
は
has gotten caught
ほ
up
ぼ
in the
間違い
crime.
ないそれを思えば
When you think about
バトラ
that,
君
you
の
can't
仮説
just
も
ignore
無
Battler
視す
Kun's
ることは
theory,
で
right?
きない
ジョージは黙ってなさい
Stay quiet, George.
そもそも
In the
お父
first
様って
place, when exactly was it that
いなくな
father
ったの
went
かしら
missing?
最後にお父さん
Who
の
was the
姿を見
last
た
one
の
to
は
see
誰や。
father?
多分私
It
で
was
しょ
probably me.
今朝主人
This
たちの
morning,
姿
when we
が
were
見えない
worried
と
that we
騒ぎ
didn't
に
know
なっ
where
た
my husband and the rest
お父
were,
様
we
の
were
書斎に
talking
いるか
about
もし
how
れ
they
ないと
might
いう
be in
話を
father's study,
私のお部屋に
and I
置
went
き
to
ました
check his room and
そこで
greeted
ご挨
him.
拶そういえば
Come to
書斎
think
の
of it,
鍵
I've
を
been
ずっと
holding
借
the
りっぱ
key
な
to
し
his
です
study
ね
the whole time, haven't
源
I?
氏
Genji,
これは
let me
返しておき
return
ま
this
す
to you. Aunt Nazi pulled out the gold key and handed it to Genji-san. Looking at the key, Auntie Ava
ね
giggled.
え源氏さ
Hey,
ん
Genji-san.
どうせ警
I'm
察
sure the
はお父
police will
様の部
inspect
屋も徹
father's
底
room
的に
thoroughly
捜査何を
anyway.
隠
It
してい
doesn't
たか
matter
ど
what you
うせ
hide, it
暴か
will
れ
just
ちゃ
be
うだっ
exposed
たらちょっと
anyway,
早
so
く
you might as well
今
just
こ
tell us
の場
about
で
it right
話して
here,
くれ
right
ても
now,
いいん
don't
じ
you
ゃな
think?
いかしら
何のお話
What are
で
you
しょう。
talking about?
シンプルな
It's
話よ
Shimpuru no Hanashio. What a fucking lie.
It's simple.
お父様の書斎
Don't
は
forget, Father's
その
study is a
鍵がなけ
locked
れば
room
外
with
から
no
入
way
ることが
in
で
or
きない
out except for that
密室
key.
Like they translated that it's simple, but she literally said it's a simple story, but like Hanashi's like story, like let me tell you, kind of like let me tell you how simple it is, you know. But Shinpuru, I want to double check how that's being defined. There is one entrance to Father's study, and also the windows. Any other entrances or exits?
あります。
There are none.
中に入る
There is no way to get in except for the entrance. You're sure about that? There isn't some secret hidden door or anything? Since Father isn't here, I am the highest ranked member of the Ushiromiya family. I am asking you as a representative of the Ushiromiya family head. Understand that and answer me. Are there any ways in or out of that room other than the main entrance? As Father's closest aide, I'm sure you'd know. Aunt Natsuhi looked a little offended at the part about the highest ranked family member, but she kept her mouth closed for the time being and waited for Genji's answer. I couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Why was she going on and on about hidden doors? You too, Kanon-kun, Kumasawa-san, if you know, won't you tell me? If there is one, it would be better if you said it. If there isn't, then someone is going to be very much driven into a corner in a second. If I'm given that there is a hidden door, then my argument comes to nothing. Aunt Ava didn't specify which person was about to be driven into a corner, but following the flow of the conversation, I had to feel that she was referring to Aunt Natsuhi. Mother, what are you talking about? George, stay quiet for a while. What do you say, Genji-san? Kanon-kun? And Kumasawa-san? Is there a hidden door? Or not? Genji-san, when you remodeled Father's... They could fucking answer if you would stop asking the same question again. Genji-san, when you remodeled Father's study, you must have overseen the construction. I won't let you say that you don't know.
そのようなもの
There is nothing of that nature in the master's study. You're sure? What about Kanon-kun, entrusted with the one-winged eagle? Yes, I'm sure. There is nothing like a hidden door in the master's study. Kumasawa-san? No, I haven't heard of such a thing. What about Dr. Nanjo, who had a close relationship with Father?
私もそんな
I've never heard of something like that.
あります
Great. Then, are you ready? Let me begin. It's really simple. Shinpuru. Everyone tilted their head doubtfully, wondering what Auntie Ava was so proudly starting to talk about. Yeah, me too. What's so fucking Shinpuru? Auntie Ava laughed triumphantly as though she were about to reveal a secret that only she knew. Natsuhine-san was the last person to spot Father, right? I forgot the exact time, but I think it was a little before 9 in the morning. Nei-san, do you remember? I ran into you just as you were coming out of Father's study, right? Yes, I remember. What does that have to do with anything? And the next time you went to visit Father's study, that was after we had found the bodies of Nissan and the rest, right? Together with me, you went up to the study to report that, and we discovered that he wasn't there. By the way, Nei-san, at that time when you went to enter Father's study, did you notice anything? Notice anything? What are you talking about? Come on. You picked up some trash, right? A folded receipts? I do seem to remember picking up some trash. What does that have to do with it? I got that receipt when I bought some candy at a store in the airport. Auntie Ava pulled a small bag of candy out of her handbag. Ah, that receipt from when you bought that candy? But, Mother, what does that receipt have to do with anything? George, stay quiet and listen for a little longer. Uncle Hideyoshi's expression was a little strict. Somehow it seemed that he understood what Auntie Ava was getting at. It was really just on a whim, you see. It wasn't out of any foresight, and I certainly wasn't planning on setting a trap for you or anything. Actually, this receipt. You remember, Nei-san, that just after you met Father and left, you met me, right? At that time, I stuck this into the door to the study. So what does that mean? Does it mean that until Aunt Nazi picked up that receipt, no one had opened the door? Wait a sec. Auntie Ava, sticking a receipt in would be obvious. It's possible that when Grandfather opened the door, he noticed it, found it interesting, and stuck it back in the door. Jessica hurriedly argued back. She still didn't really know what it meant, but she realized that whatever it was placing some kind of serious suspicion on her own mother. Of course, I folded the receipt up very small so that no one would notice it. But even if you assume that he saw it fall, he would have no way of knowing how high up the door it had been stuck, right? I checked it while Natsuhine-san was taking the key out. Oh, hello.
Hey, you don't smoke.
Nope. How you doing?
I'm good. I came to say hello.
Hello. I'm reading all these peoples in this video game. 6. There's 18 people and 6 are dead. And the others are... No, well, the Golden Witch is... There's 4 people who insist that she exists. Nobody else really believes, but she's not visible. And Battler, who has no... the little girl Maria insists that Battler has no sixth sense and therefore cannot see the witch that she is capable of seeing, and that all the servants seem to be able to see. But
It's the guy that kept going, Beatrice.
He's not dead, but they can't figure out where he is right now, and that's what they're talking about.
He's probably banging.
That's his dream, but I don't think she's into him like that, unfortunately for him. Well, he just wants to see her smile. That's literally all he wants, is to see the Golden Witch smile one more time. Because he's got a whole painting of her smile, like doing like a Mona Lisa smile type thing, and she's currently incorporeal, so he cannot see her smile.
It's like Puerto Rico. Do not litter.
I don't know. It's strange. Don't litter in Puerto Rico. You'll go to
It
jail.
says please recycle, and then it says Puerto Rico dash do not litter.
That is very weird. I don't know.
Is littering a problem in Puerto Rico?
I
Is recycling
I don't know. Trixie said, I was predicting another sneak attack, as it is what happens in the current highlight I am working on. I was also anticipating another sneak attack. I thought I had heard you coming a few other times, and it wasn't you.
Also, I like that you said Trixie said that.
Oh, yeah, well, it says Trixie Clipsy on the screen, so... I guess I should call them Clipsy. What? No, I forgot about that. I went straight from being a... No, I did not start watching it close. I forgot about that, too. I even got ready to start doing that, but I never did it.
Just kept falling back asleep.
I did keep falling back asleep. Well, do you want to listen to me read about this game?
I really do.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that's right. I'm making a woman do my chores. Look at stream, honey. They're all killing each other? I thought it was just Beatrice doing the killing.
We don't know who's doing the killing there. That's the whole point of the
That's
game.
the Golden Witch,
figure out
right?
who's doing the I think someone might be killing in the name of the Golden Witch.
Like the old guy who keeps screaming, Beatrice.
I mean, well, the problem is that it was 6 people who all got killed probably at about the same time, and 4 of them have no face remaining, and 2 of them have just half a face remaining. So they were killed in a way where their whole faces were just like
You trying to
bored
eat my face?
off. No.
Are you sure?
Yummy face. Well, your face looks delicious. I'm thinking about if like a capybara was nibbling on my face. Yes, he is in fact holding the Lance of Longinus in their wedding photo, I think. Well, no, surely not.
That's not the last one.
But it is some kind of like Aquaman spear or something. I can't.
Aquaman spear is a trident.
That's true. It's only got 2 prongs. I mean, maybe it's the one from Neptune down at the beach, the Neptune statue.
Well, anyway,
Alright.
for real.
Good night. I love you. Have a nice sleep.
How is this stuff, by the way?
It's very delicious.
It's pretty good.
Alright, time for more Umineko. Umineko. I checked it while Natsume-san was taking the key out. The receipt was still stuck not 1 millimeter away from where I had put it. I can't understand why you would pull such a childish prank. I'll bet you were the one who did that prank on the door to my room, too. The door to your room? It was unpleasant to talk about, so I didn't. Fucking dumb bitch. But this morning, when I woke up, there was the signs of some pranks on the outside of my door with what was probably the same red paint that was scribbled across the shutter. There were some unpleasant marks, as though someone had been tearing at the door. Wait, what is this? Why have you been silent about this until now? My apologies. Since so many horrid things have happened since then, I had completely forgotten about it until just now. I don't know or care about that. I am not talking about your door, but the door to Father's room, okay? After you checked that he was in his room, and until we made sure that he wasn't, that door wasn't opened even once. How did Father get out if he didn't use the door? I don't know that. That is why I want to know. Natsume-san, other than you, who else checked to see whether Father was in his room? The last time I met Ginzo-san was when we were playing chess last night. I believe I was with him until just before dinner. Did anyone see him after that? I did. I gave him his dinner last night. Yes, Shannon and I were with him. So up until then, Father was still definitely in his room. But Natsume-san, it sounds like when you found out he wasn't there, always in or out of the study were closed, right? But even so, you said that you met and talked with him this morning. I don't understand why everyone has become so gloomy. Could someone explain it to me? Mother and Father, are you saying that what Aunt Natsu says about meeting Grandfather this morning is a lie? Why the hell would she tell a lie? Mom's innocent. Why the hell would she lie? Jessica, I keep telling you to watch your language. All at once, everything became confused. From across the parlor table, Auntie Ava and Aunt Natsu confronted each other, while George Eineke confronted Jessica. What the hell is going on? Remember, it's only up until last night that we have multiple people saying they saw him, but the only one who claims that they saw Father since this morning is Natsume-san. And then there's that strange fact we learned from the receipt. So, how can we connect these points together? Auntie Ava urged everyone to work their imagination. Sure, that receipt could become an important point. This fucking song is a bop, by the way. But I didn't know what other point I could draw a line towards. The answer Auntie Ava was hoping for was that Natsume had lied to make it seem as if Grandfather had been in the room this morning. And Auntie Ava's mere whim had exposed that? That makes no friggin' sense. Why the hell would Mom lie? She has no friggin' reason to. That's what I want to know. But Jessica-chan, you can't say that there's no possible reason for her to lie about Father being in the room, right? You see it every once in a while in detective novels, don't you? That trick of confusing the time of death to create an alibi? What are you talking about? I've never even heard of that. Well, we still haven't found Father yet, but if you think about it normally, it would be natural to assume that he has already been killed. In that case, we should expect to find his corpse soon. If at that point the time of death could be faked, Natsume-san would be able to create an alibi. Do you understand, everyone? This morning, when Aunt Natsu went to check that Grandfather was there, she lied. He was already dead at that time, and she moved the body to some location and disguised it to make it seem like he had just been killed there. and then she could stay with everyone else to prepare an alibi, and then she could say, I heard someone screaming or something, and dash over here and become the first to find the body along with everyone else? Is that what Auntie Ava's saying? How preposterous. Detective novels are nothing more than indulgent entertainment. You can only think of such an indiscreet idea because you read them all the time. Yeah, even if she tried to fake the time of death a little, all that would be blown away in an instant once the police did their autopsy. They might have fooled the people in old books, but do you seriously think that kind of trick would fly in modern Japan? Are you insane? You think so? This morning, when Dr. Nanjo looked at the corpses, he was only able to give a vague estimate of the time of death, right? Autopsy results are affected greatly by the corpse's surroundings and individual peculiarities. It's a very rough estimate with an uncertainty of several hours. And unfortunately, the police's scientific investigation will have to wait until tomorrow. Measuring the exact time of death after that, even in modern Japan, like you said, wouldn't be that easy, you know. Right, Dr. Nanjo? Examining a corpse is an extremely difficult task that requires both experience and instinct. I have heard that there is a very high rate of mistaken diagnosis. I imagine it is very possible for a misreading of just a few hours to occur. However, for an alibi, that's more than enough. It's not just a trick for the classics, it's a trick that actually works. Natsume-san, it's not like we want to suspect you, alright? We don't, and that's why we just want you to prove you're innocent. What is this innocence you want me to prove? This morning I definitely met with father, and he told me to keep the one-winged eagle engraved in my heart. Are you denying that he said that too? I will definitely not permit that. I will not permit you to deny that father said those words. Maybe father's body won't appear at all. Normally, a person has to be missing for 7 years before they're officially declared dead. Wouldn't that be a clever way to extend father's nearly finished life another 7 years and keep all of his wealth for yourself? I cannot abide this. She's fucking got the gat out. I cannot abide any more from you. I am Sushiromi Natsu. Although I do not have the right to wear the one-winged eagle on my body, it is certainly engraved in my heart. Speaking that way to the wife of Kraus, successor to the head, the person who will act as such in his place, absolutely disgusting. What's this? Holy fucking shit. Bad ass. What's this? Are you going to shoot me with that gun? Go ahead then. Don't you just shoot, why don't you? You're just desperate because you can't think of a way out, aren't you? Do it. Just try to obscure the truth with violence. It wasn't like Aunt Nazi had been actually holding that gun at the ready and threatening anyone. But after she was told by Auntie Ava, she did hold it at the ready. Unsurprisingly, once things got to this stage, Jessica and Genji-san tried to stop her. Madam, please, calm yourself. Mom, you aren't lying, so there's no reason for you to listen to this. Calm down, Natsume. Don't you have to just swear that father was definitely in that room? Why are you getting so worked up over that? That's right. Natsu-san isn't lying. Isn't that the end of it? Then I want you to explain. How did father manage to disappear from the room? The windows were closed tight from the inside. And the door too, remember? If you really met with father this morning, then you must explain how he disappeared from this unopened door locked room scenario. If you don't, that would mean that you are a liar after all, right? How far do you plan to mock me? If you want to argue back, go ahead. That's right. Try explaining it right here, right now. After that, I can apologize to you for doubting me. How did father manage to get out from that locked room? I can't explain that, and I don't need to. Really? Then let me explain it. We'll take the best parts from my perspective and yours and come up with a more friendly explanation. I'll believe that, like you said, father was still in his room this morning. But the next time the door was opened, father wasn't there. You don't have any objections so far, right? I have no desire to listen to anything more you have to say. Shut your frivolous mouth.
My reasoning goes like this, alright? I verified on both occasions that you were the only one to go through that door. And the receipt is proof of that. So what is the answer to the puzzle of how father was sent out of the room regardless? The window! He was sent out the window! Natsume-san, you pushed father out of the third-story window of the study into the courtyard! You vicious malcontent! That's a hell of an insult. I mean, in Japanese, she's just screaming onore. I don't know if that directly translates to vicious malcontent, but it's a great translation. Madam, please endure it. Eva-sama, please stop this. Father died from the fall into the courtyard, and when you left saying you were going to check the doors and windows, you went and hid the corpse somewhere. That was probably when you took some measures to fake the time of death, right? This all ties in with the case regarding Kraus Nissan and the rest, and also the case regarding Beatrice last night. There's an extremely good chance that Natsu Nissan is suspicious in those cases. Normally I wouldn't want to say this, but now it's out in the open. There's nothing else I can do. Please, Natsu Nissan, please explain how you can be innocent, or else I can't help but suspect you. Why me? Why must I, Ushiromi, and Natsu be insulted like this? Looks like everyone else has said their piece. No good, no goddamn good at all, Auntie Ava. What do you mean, no good, Battler? Jessica looked up at me, hanging on to my every word. Auntie Ava's expression was composed as always. No good at all, you say? What is? Battler-kun, tell me. You can only see this from one angle, and that's why you're convinced that it has to be Aunt Natsuhi. It's not like I'm defending her, but bluffing a checkmate like that isn't gonna work, especially when you could have just pushed him out the window like you just said when you went and put the fucking receipt in the door and Natsuhi was already out of the room. I think the theory you've based around that receipt is passable. It's not a bad thread of logic, but I'd only give it a grade of 65 at best. If this were an exam, that'd be bad enough to get you an extra lesson in attention, you know. Oh my, well, how would you break through a door sealed by a receipt and make father disappear other than by my theory? Your theory is interesting, I admit. And if we could state definitively that there was no way to make grandfather disappear other than yours, then we could say for certain that the last person to see him, Aunt Natsuhi, has to be responsible. However, since there is still a possibility that she is innocent and that these accusations are false, you can't make that claim. Then Battler-kun, who are you saying could have made grandfather disappear other than Natsume-san? It would be impossible for anyone else to do it. My receipt proved that, right? From the first time she visited that study and until the second time when we visited it together, the study was a perfect locked room, and when the seal was broken on the locked room, he was already missing. If this doesn't prove that she was the culprit, what kind of trick could they have used? Like I said, Auntie Ava, only 65 points. So, let's try flipping over the chessboard, shall we? Let's flip that chessboard, bitch! It's not about how they managed to make grandfather disappear from the outside. Think about how grandfather disappeared from the inside. The door had the receipt stuck in it, so it couldn't have been used. He also couldn't have gone through a window because they can't be locked from the outside, and when you visited the study, you checked to make sure they were locked. So the windows also weren't used. At that point, the study really was a locked room. We have to accept this. However, the study didn't remain a locked room forever. Once the seal created by the receipt was removed, it became possible to use the door and possible to escape through the door. In other words, it's not about how Aunt Natsuhi made grandfather disappear. We need to think about how he was able to escape. Grandfather's study isn't any ordinary study, right? According to Genji-san, there's a toilet and a kitchen and even a bedroom, almost like a little house. If he hid under the bed, for example, he could trick the two of you into thinking he disappeared, right? Auntie Ava, even you didn't check that carefully, did you? And then the two of you went back down the stairs thinking that he wasn't there. Until that time, the receipt was already gone. At that time.
In other words, if grandfather was hiding in his room the whole time when it was a locked room and escaped after letting the two of you go past him, we can crack this locked room right open. What is this? Why would father want to do something that weird and then escape the room? Don't be so absurd. Well, come on. You know your dad. Yeah, it might be absurd. However, it still shows that there is a possibility that Aunt Nazi is being accused falsely. Your receipt wasn't perfect. In chess, we might call that check, but it isn't checkmate. And the thing that I like least is how you pressure Aunt Nazi to explain it and then argue that if she doesn't, she must be guilty. If that passes as logic, then why don't you let me? Flip over the chessboard one more time. Let's go. Never stop flipping that chessboard. Auntie Eva, according to your argument, you must explain to us here and now why you and Uncle Hideyoshi couldn't have killed those 6 last night and then casually returned to the guest house. You've been trying to force Aunt Nazi to explain. I'm sure you can prove your own innocence, right? Auntie Eva, who's had all of grandfather's wealth suddenly dropped into her hands. That's right. You're pretty damn suspicious yourself, aren't you? If you say Mom's suspicious because she was the last person to see him, then what about you, Auntie Ava, who was the last person to see Dad and the rest? Just like Battler said, prove that you two weren't the ones that killed them. Mother, I also think that your reasoning was a little overeager. I'm sure that the receipt was an important hint. But like Battler-kun said, that's not enough to prove that Aunt Nazi is guilty by any degree. We are all equally suspicious. It's not right for only Aunt Nazi to be persecuted. A noble father crawling on the floor under his bed? You call nonsense like that an explanation? Then why don't you explain first? Who killed those 6 and how, and then showing us proof that you weren't involved? Jessica's literally dying. Oh my god. She is not okay. And then Jessica suddenly coughed her lung out. Milady. Jessica suddenly started coughing. At first, I thought that she was just choking after yelling too loud, but it seemed to be lasting too long for that, and she really looked like she was suffering. Jessica kept coughing and choking down on her hands and knees. Jessica, hang in there. Dr. Nanjo. Jessica-san, your inhaler, quickly. No, wait, I have one with me. Oh yeah, we were warned about her asthma. Dr. Nanjo pulled a bronchodulator inhaler from his own bag, which was lying on the sofa, and handed it to Kanon-kun. Come to think of it, 6 years ago, didn't Jessica sometimes break into violent coughing and have to use that? But 6 years ago, I never saw Jessica look like she was in this much pain. Aniki, was Jessica's asthma always this bad? It's gotten a lot worse these last few years. It's no problem when she's normal, but when an attack comes suddenly, she can't stop coughing. I'm not going to do all the coughs. Milady, your medicine. Here. Taking the inhaler from Kanon-kun, Jessica used it with a practiced hand. For a while, it looked like her throat was still feeling itchy, but it gradually settled down. Are you alright, Jessica? You scared me. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Beads of sweat covered Jessica's whole body, and she couldn't hide her rough breathing, but it looked like her sudden attack had calmed down for now. This disturbance had left the room's hostile atmosphere in an awkward, unsettled state, but that was fine. There was absolutely no need to be driving up everyone's suspicion of each other. When you think about it, even probing at each other's alibis and searching for the killer were probably completely unnecessary. After all, we're just powerless, ordinary people, and when the police come tomorrow, they'll definitely employ cutting-edge techniques and investigate the case thoroughly, solve all of the riddles, and arrest the killer. Yeah, right. I wonder if Battler is right after all. Just like Natsuhine-san is suspicious, I can't ignore the fact that we are suspicious too. Arguing about that now is certainly unproductive. Everything will be fine if we just leave it to the police tomorrow. But don't you want to know too, Battler-kun, who the killer is? Don't you want to let them know right this very second the pain you feel from losing someone precious to you? I won't deny that. Even one day would be too long to let the bastard who pulled this detestable bullshit go. but that doesn't mean that I want to
だからといって
doubt one of these
18にさっき
18.
はああ言ったが
Even though I said what I said earlier, I
Wow.
don't even want to doubt
エヴァ
you,
おばさんだ
Auntie
俺
Ava.
にとってのエヴ
To
ァお
me,
ばさ
you're
ん
an
は
awesome aunt who's always
ちょめっ気
mischievous
があっ
and
て
entertaining.
そんなおばさんと
I don't want to trade
こん
insults
な
with an
罵
aunt
り合い
like
はした
that.
ここにいる誰だっ
Not
て
a single
そん
person
なこ
here
とは
wants to
望んで
do
ねえはず
that.
さだろ
Right?
みんな
Everyone?
バトラ君に同
I
じ
feel the same as
意味のない
Battler-kun.
罵
It's
り合いだ
pointless to
ね
trade
多分
insults. It's probably just the
これだけの
stress
人
built
数
up
が
because so many
朝から
people have
ひと
been
ところに
crammed
ず
in
っと
one
集ま
place
ってる
since
から
morning.
どうしよう
Probably.
無理もないか
It is only
できるもの
natural.
で
It
は
may
あ
be
りません
easier
が
said than done, but I think we should all relax as much as possible.
Eva.
Eva.
わしらも頭を
Don't you think we should cool our heads?
レシートの件は
I do think the receipt is going to be an important clue in searching for father's whereabouts. We should tell the police about it when they come. Yes, you're right. Yes. I just felt a little triumphant when I figured out that part with the receipt. Of course, it isn't fair to only doubt Natsuhine-san. We're just as suspicious. But still, Battler-kun, at least the part about the receipt is real, all right? Don't forget this. And try thinking deeply about what this means, okay? I like how she decided, well, Battler, since you've proven that you have all the logic here, so why don't you figure all this fucking shit out? Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they planned on leaving the parlor. In the end, it's pointless for us to continue playing detectives. After all, the police will reveal everything in the end anyway. That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game, when the typhoon passes and these lively seagulls return to the harbor, everything will settle itself. Yes, yeah, this is like setting up for and then another one's going to die right now. If you think about it, this kind of crime is completely trivial. It will definitely be resolved, even if we do nothing. When the seagulls cry. Roll credits, gang. Roll the motherfucking credits. We have said the name of the game. I am going to go start on Bird's Laundry real quick and grab myself something to eat because I'm hungry. So I'm going to take a 5 to 10 minute break, and I encourage you to do the same. And then I'll read a lot more of this thing. Let me save this. It will definitely be resolved in one piece. Aritakeru yume o kakiatsume sagashimono sagashi ni yuku no sa Pocket no coin それとUmineko no naku koro ni We are on the Umineko. I'll be back. Lapucia with $2 asks, "How am I finding the game/story so far?" It's very entertaining. Um, it is. It's so long-winded and goes over. What's the word I'm looking for? In depth, in detail. Like it leaves no stone unturned, and I appreciate that. Even if that is also what makes it feel like it is exhaustive, exhausting because it is exhaustive. But I wouldn't want it not to be that way. That is the appeal also. Like it being so exhaustive is what makes it good. It's just like, okay, you have to be ready to deal with like that's what the story is. That's what you're going to lose yourself in for the next however many hours. Um Ellen, I don't think there's any scenes that feel like they don't matter. Like I understand what you mean by that because they matter more than they seem like, but that just seems obvious to me. Like um the story is too planned. Like it's so planned, there's no way that any single word of it doesn't mean something. Like why would they even put those words in there if they didn't mean anything? Is kind of the vibe of it. Like um a lot of people who think those scenes don't matter, they're dumb. I mean, you cannot account for dumb people and the expectation here, but I also have like I've seen the entire Higurashi anime and I've seen the whole Umineko anime. So I have an idea of like what are the mechanics of this story, what is going to happen a little bit later. I think there's a lot of criticism of the rich. Yeah. I would say it's mostly criticism of the rich. Power structures, gender dynamics. There's a lot to say. I mean, I think it essentially is about all of the ways that a family is typically fucked, other than being poor. Although low key, they are also that. Because they're all rich, but they're all in debt. So they're all like in a weird nebulous, like, live rich, be poor state. I shouldn't say I've seen the whole Higurashi anime because I forgot to keep making more of it. I've seen the whole first 2 seasons. I didn't finish Ray. But yeah, like I guess what's most interesting to me is the psychological stuff and the generational stuff, like the interplay between generations, which anime just doesn't do enough with at all. Like one of the biggest things missing from anime as a medium in general is a tendency to fill a story with young characters and then to have the older characters really feel like ancillary, or they never are like a major role. Maybe 1 or 2 are. Even in Higurashi, like there are adult characters who matter, but they don't come into the story till later, and there's only a few of them. And like in Umineko, it feels like I don't feel like the teenagers are the main characters. Even it was a little bit more like that in the anime, but in the visual novel, it kind of just feels like a total ensemble. Like everybody's kind of equally important. It's even though Battler gives his perspective a lot of the time, you literally totally leave his perspective for many scenes. Oh, so yeah, I really like that it has all these adult characters, full families, that they're all part of one big family. That's another thing that despite the fact that Japan, like most Asian cultures, like has fairly large families that are usually fairly together, you see very little of that in anime. Like Summer Wars and this, can you even think of another like 3 generations of a huge family together type of a story? I can't off the top of my head. I go one more anime that's about like a family reunion, which it's an atmosphere that hits a lot harder with me now too, because like I have a kind of a big family, and there were times as a kid where like all of us might be together, all the cousins, all the aunts, and all that stuff. But it's diminished a lot as the years have gone on. But like Bird really does belong to one of these like really big families that if they all get together, it's going to be like 20 people. And the interplay of how all those people feel about one another is endlessly fascinating. And so like having been around like big family get together events more so than when I first watched the anime, like I relate to the game way more, just like, oh, this is totally what it's like. This is exactly what it's like to be a part of one of these big family gathering things, Oh, I haven't seen My Neighbor Stream Models yet. But that's another reason for me to need to see that movie, if there weren't enough already. I just want to like the 3 Ghiblis I still haven't watched. Okay. I just pounded 2 vanilla ice cream sandwiches, I mean. I might be ready to jump back onto the island. Okay, let's do it. When the seagulls cry. Natsune-san, I'll take it that you don't want to see my face anymore. I feel the same. If I remember correctly, yesterday you had some rooms prepared for us in the mansion so that we wouldn't need to go back to the guest house, right? There should be a bath and a toilet there, as well as a lock and chain to secure the door. There's even a bed to lie on, and my husband will be able to watch TV without having to fight with Maria-chan over which channel to watch, okay? You may do as you please. But make sure to be cautious. Thank you, Nei-san, and mind your own business. I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on everyone, alright? Because the killer is definitely among us. And Nei-san, make sure you don't forget that you're being watched, too. She definitely just, like, hardcore thinks Nazi did it, right? Haven't you made enough parting remarks? Yes, that's enough. See you, Natsune-san. Genji-san, please call for us when it's dinner time. Until then, we'll keep ourselves locked in with the chain. Genji, Kanon, escort them to the guest room. We'll be fine. I don't want to end up being escorted by the killer. In fact, I'd be more comfortable if nobody left this room until we reached ours. Let's go, George. I'll stay here with everyone else. George? The killer is in this room. Do you plan on staying in a place like that? Leaving this room would be the same as suspecting one of my relatives. I refuse to believe that anyone in our family is capable of something so horrifying. George? Honey, say something to him. George is already an adult. If his code tells him not to leave this room, then it's up to him. Let him do what he wants. Father. Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. The parlor was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find that it was already evening. Had we really spent that much time worrying, talking, fighting about such needless things? Feeling bored, I started clawing at my head when Maria and I made eye contact. Since I had thought she was completely immersed in the TV, I was a little surprised.
今なら信じるぞ。
I'll believe it now.
Huh?
手紙も殺人
The
も
letter,
全て
the murders, everything. It was
ベアトリ
all
ーチェの仕業だ。
Beatrice.
いや、
No, actually, I wish she would just come out and say that was true.
19人目の仕
I
業
want it to be the work of a 19th person. Otherwise, the 18 of us will have to keep on doubting each other.
これなら
I think believing in a 19th person is better than that.
扉も窓も開け
Bringing
ずに
grandfather outside without opening the doors or windows must be a piece of cake for Beatrice, right? Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head and then raised her face again.
That's right. Locking a door is useless against the witch. Beatrice is familiar with all 72 demons. The 33rd ranked gap gives the power to instantly carry the desired person to any location. To her, taking a person out of any locked room isn't hard at all, you see.
魔女はすげえ
Witches sure are incredible. Tell her, if she still plans on committing another crime, to do it in a way that no human could,
19人目を
to make me believe that a 19th person, no, a witch, exists. Oh boy, that's a... Daddler. That's not the way you ask for that.
Alright. If I meet her, I'll tell her.
Damn it. I don't even understand my own thoughts anymore. When I'm led to believe in a 19th person, I deny it, and when I'm led to believe that there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I wish that there were more than just the 18 people here, I can't accept the existence of that 19th person. In short, even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19. The number of people in this mansion is 19 greater than X greater than 18. Okay, Battler. So the number of people can't be represented by an integer. However, it's impossible for there to be anything other than after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to represent the number of people with anything but an integer. And yet, 19 greater than X greater than 18. Why does a fraction less than 1 play into this? It's no wonder. That 19th person is an invisible being that can't be seen. That's why in the integer representation that must be used to describe numbers of people, she can't be seen. I know what it's like to have to think like this, to like, in order to explain something to yourself, you just keep thinking of it in different, like slightly different, like you have to codify it into a math equation. I wouldn't usually pick a math equation like that, but I get it. That which cannot be seen, because Beatrice has no body, therefore she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does the witch exist or not? X greater than... I'm just going to tweet this real quick. 19 is greater than X is greater than 18, just to see if anybody knows what the fuck I'm talking about. Apropos of nothing. Alright. The witch exists somewhere in that X. Oh shit. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that thinking about who the killer was would be the same as deciding who to doubt. It had begun to feel like discussion of the incident itself was taboo, so no one was mentioning it, at least out loud. However, those thoughts are what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood, though everything was left unsettled. It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter.
Well, still pouring down. Ugh.
仮にやんだって
Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this Western Mansion vacation.
母さん、
Mom, when
明
will
日
the boat come
本
tomorrow?
来なら
Originally, the boat to take them back would have arrived at 3 o'clock today. They probably would have telephoned to say they wouldn't come after the typhoon passed. They would come, but unfortunately the telephones aren't working. But they aren't children over there. They were told this was for the purpose of dropping off and collecting our guests, so they will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Probably around 9 o'clock, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, trying to use food to enliven everyone's low spirits. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was sometimes very highly valued. Kanon arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't skillfully arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly, but Kumasawa smiled to say everything was fine. It's arranged beautifully. Kanon-kun, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shannon-ne-san, it would have been even more beautiful. Yeah, okay, we get it, Shadow the Hedgehog. Cannon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kanon was doing it instead, and as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Forget it for now. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced upon. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had become sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request. Yes, I will forget it for now. Good. That is probably for the best. Genji purposely faced away from Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words. What is the deal with Kanon's eyes? Why does he not want anyone to look him in the eyes? Is it just an autism thing? I wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. I hope that he is safe, but I do not know. Only I think everything is as the master hoped, as he has arranged. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture working for the master. Aren't you scared, Genji-san? I am frightened something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I simply work for the Ushiromiya family. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly think that he would be left out of this? He couldn't begin to imagine what was happening inside this mansion, but he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that it was something of Kinzo's design. If you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game, and as a result, 6 pieces had fallen. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed that he alone was outside the chessboard and safe? Nanjo thought about it. Wasn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard, lined up equally without any exceptions? Wasn't even Genji, who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone? No, it wasn't Nanjo himself, although proud of his position as Kinzo's only close friend, just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard? Genji-san, I am really frightened about tonight. I'm hoping with all my heart that we will still be safe when tomorrow morning comes. The storm can take Eva and Natsuhi, though. They kind of are insufferable. The guest room that Eva and Hideyoshi had moved into was used to house guests before the guest house had been constructed. So until a few years ago, they had stayed in this room every family conference and were very familiar with it. This room, just like a room at a hotel, had a bedroom and a bathroom, and so even though they were still shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlor. Yes, it's true, you can relax more when you're alone with your immediate family. They should all just do this, shut themselves in guest rooms and lock the doors. But Natsuhi-san's throwing her weight around, saying no one can leave the parlor. How can any of them talk back? She always felt she was being left out in the cold, so now that Nissan's dead, she's in high spirits, thinking her time has finally come. Seriously, how shameless can she be? I don't think that's how she's feeling. Come on, come now, don't say that. Natsu-san's working pretty hard. No need to jump on her like that. And about that receipt earlier, you went too far there. Oh, come
あそ
on.
こで言わな
If
か
I
った
hadn't
ら
said it there, there
もう
wouldn't
言
be
うタ
another
イミン
good
グが
time
な
to
い
say it. Ava, sulking cutely, sat down beside Hideyoshi, who was laying on the bed watching TV. And then he went pop on that booty.
こうして二人きり
Still,
に
it's
な
been
る
a
のは
very
ずい
long
ぶん
time
久し
since
ぶ
we've
り
been
よ
alone like this. Ooh,
そうやな。
sure has.
思えば
When I think about it, both you and I have gotten
ジ
older.
ョージが生まれてから何もかも
Since
が
George was born, everything's gone by in the blink of an
本
eye.
当にあっと
It
いう
really
間よ
has gone by in the blink of
子
an
供
eye.
を作る
I
の
wonder if we were too hasty in having a
Así se grita,
child. Ava's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she had thought it a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to have a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsuhi without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. As for Ava herself, she would be removed from the Ushiromi register anyway once she got married, so whether a successor to the head was born or not, it was all the same to her. So she had thought. But then, one day, she had a heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was the whisperings of the devil that she had heard in her greed. Perhaps she could remain in the Ushiromiya register if she gave birth to a successor first. If things went well, perhaps she could even inherit the Ushiromiya family herself. When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he approved of it instantly. This had not been because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more that long-forgotten thing called family. So he agreed without hesitation not to fuss over which family name they were to keep upon getting married, and assented to having his name entered into the Ushiromiya family register. These two are definitely fucking dying tonight. It wasn't easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter, Ava knew Kinzo's personality well. So she chose the time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, and expertly managed to make him accept Hideyoshi as a son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and permitted him to transfer to the Ushiromiya register. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushiromiya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. George had been worth their while, and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why she couldn't stand that he was in love with a servant like Shannon. So when she had learned that Shannon had died and the engagement had been invalidated, while part of her had been shocked at the gruesome crime, another part of her had been relieved that her precious George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. Fucking bitch.
私
I
クラウス兄さん
always did hate Kraus
昔から
Nisan.
嫌いはそうで
He was so full of himself, always swaggering around.
自分がやがては
So
当主に
proud
な
that
る
he
の
would
が
one
自
day
慢して
become the head.
だから
So I wanted
そ
to
れ
get
に
back
一
at
矢
him.
報いてでも
Those
そ
were
れは
just
子
my
供の頃
emotions
の
as a
感情なの
child,
よ
of course.
でもその感情
But in
は
the end, those emotions
Okay.
took over my entire life.
それだけならまだ
And
いい
if only that had been all.
その感情は
Because of those emotions, I got you and George involved and I used you.
エヴァ
Ava,
そ
don't
ない
blame
自分を
yourself so
責める
much.
な
Or do. Hideyoshi sat up and put his arm around Ava. She could feel a warm understanding from
わ
him.
しはな
Well, I reached the halfway point in my life long ago, but you know, I have never
今
once
日までの
regretted
生
how
活
I've
を
lived my
後悔
life.
した
How
ことは
fucking
一
old
度
is
一
he?
度もや
Not
エ
once.
ヴァと一緒で
I think that since I've been with you, Ava, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will.
戦争で身寄り
After
を
I
失っ
lost
た
my
わし
relatives in
に
the war, you taught me
もう
once
一度
more
家族
that
の
the
ぬ
warmth
くも
of
りを
family
教えたから
So I'm grateful for the Ushiromiya family and think of it as my
わ
only
しの
family.
わしとお前が
In this life I've led with you, not a single thing has been wasted. It's really been a fun life up to today.
ありがとう
They do seem like they have the most fun. Thank you, honey. Ava hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Ava
感
existed.
謝するのはわし
I'm the one who should be thanking
今日
you.
までお前
To
と
this
一緒
day,
に
there hasn't been a single day that I've regretted being with you.
私もよ
Me too.
あなたと一緒に
I'm so glad to have you by my side.
ジョージももう
George is already a fine
わしが
adult.
見張ってなくて
He's a man who can do his job well on his own, even if I'm not there looking out for him. How about it? Around New Year's, do you want to go spend some time in the Maldives? Just us two? No one else?
嫌よ。
No
毎
way.
年
Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep? None of that this New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I've won the New Year's lottery. It'd sure be nice if we won a color TV this year. Dog, you got money. No way. I don't want to check the lottery in the Maldives. None of that either. Just the two of us, taking our time, carrying on from when we were newlyweds, just before George was born. Yeah,
それならいいわ。
that does sound nice. I hear the Maldives are wonderful. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful coral reefs and cottages lined up over the water.
新婚時代。
Carrying on from when we were newlyweds. When will that be? Soon as I finish some business. I won't know it until I ask the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve. No way. Right now, I want to start right now. Peevishly, or maybe coquettishly, Ava pled for his lips. The only sounds that filled the room were the distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. And then they fucked. They got it on. They did the Dewey. There was a knock on the door and Genji-san entered.
奥様、
Madam,
お夕食の準備が
dinner has
整
been
いました
prepared.
お食事は
Will you eat in
また
here
こちらで
again?
ええ、
Yes.
ここへ運ばせ
Bring
ま
it
す。
here.
南條先生
Is
は
Dr. Nanjo
まだ
still in the
厨房に
kitchen?
はい
Yes.
次の一
He
手を
has said
熟
that he
考した
wishes
い
to
とおっしゃ
carefully
っており
deliberate
ま
over
す
his next move.
ご安心を
Do not worry, he is with the other
他の
servants.
源氏さんはじい様の
Genji-san's
相
good
手が
enough
でき
at
るくらい
chess to be
チェスは
grandfather's
南條
opponent.
先生よ
I
り
hear
も
he's
強い
even
らしい
better
ぜ
than Dr. Nanjo, you know.
そうなんだ。
Is that right?
昔
I played
相手を
against
して
him
も
long
らった
ago,
こ
but
と
he
がある
must
け
have
ど
let me win.
マリア、もうすぐ
Maria,
飯だ
sounds
そうだ
like it'll
ぜ。
be time to eat soon.
しかし、
But look at you, you've been watching TV all day and you still haven't gotten bored.
Ugh, I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine. Ugh.
ええ、マリアちゃんは
Maria-chan sure is a
テレビっ子なんだ
TV
ね。
kid.
食事だから
Video kid.
机の上を
Cowboy
片付けないと
Bebop
ダメ
at
だ
his
ぜ。
computer. Food's coming, so we have to clean up the table. It was still cluttered with the aftermath of the drawing contest we had all been having, using several pages torn out of Maria's notebook. Amazing. They've just gone completely back to being cute, just in time for someone else to die. Jessica began cleaning that up quickly. Still, everyone here sure can draw. Really shocking. Show us the drawings. Show us the drawings.
エ
Genji.
ヴァさんたちにも
Ask
せめて
Eva-san and
食事くらい一緒
Hideyoshi-san
に
whether
しな
they
い
would
か
at least
と
like
お
to
声
have
かけ
dinner
な
with
さい。どう
us.
せ断るでしょう。
Although they will probably turn us down. Yeah, they
か
fucking
しこまりました
certainly.
お父様の次はエ
First
ヴァさ
father,
んです
now
が、つく
Eva-san.
づく
We seem incapable of
後ろにあった
managing a
食
full
卓に
showing at the
全
Ushiromi
員が
dinner
揃いませ
table.
ん。
Natsu felt her headache start throbbing again and lightly held her temples. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that large, so Genji had gone there and back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsu had warned him not to be alone without good reason, and just now Nanjo had also admonished him, saying that it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Genji took Kanon with him, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Genji knocked on the door. Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama,
お夕食の準備
dinner
が
has
整
been
いました
prepared. He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response. They are
Genji-sama.
fucking. Genji-sama,
これは。
look at this. Kanon pointed under the door. Blood, blood, blood. Uh-oh. A Western-style envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it would be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So, since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western-style envelope was Kinzo's envelope, the same as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with.
間違いない
There's no mistake.
親方様
It's
の
the master's envelope.
あるいは
Or, although it had been Kinzo's envelope, the author of the letter Maria had read aloud last night had not been Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out, Jesus fucking Christ. Shit. Thought you were in bed.
I was, and then I found my work pants above my head.
What? They're in the... What did I put in the wash?
I don't know, but it wasn't my work pants.
Uh-oh.
エヴァ様
Well, okay, I gotta go get your work pants and throw them in the washer with the rest of the stuff. Resolved. All right, let's find out if they're dead. Eva-sama. Eva-sama.
源氏でございます
It is Genji.
いらっしゃいますか
Are you there?
お返事をお願いいた
Please
します
answer, Eva-sama. But there was no response from inside. Sometimes when the servants went to call some guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show that they had called by and then leave the guest be. However, despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Ava's name. But there was no answer. Kanon stuck his ear up to the door and, holding his breath, listened for any sounds coming from inside.
テレビの音らしきも
I hear something that sounds like the
の
television.
でも気
And I
配が
don't
感じられ
sense
ません
anyone.
お部屋は空っぽか
The
も
room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief and, careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope which had been stuck under the door. It had been sealed with deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on that sealing wax had come from the Ushiromiya family head's ring.
エヴァ様
Eva-sama,
エヴァ様
Eva-sama,
どうかお返事を
please answer.
もうお部屋には
Are
い
you
らっしゃ
still
い
in
ます
your room? Even so, there was still no answer. There was a chance that the two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Ava had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out on a casual stroll. Genji groped around in his pocket and pulled out a bundle of keys, including one that would open the guest
刑事
room.
様
Genji-sama? Kanon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock a guest's door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they had made sure the guest was out. To unlock the door for a separate reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance the guests were still in there and without their permission, was an action unbecoming of a servant. However, Genji had decided, if the only problem had been that his knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly Kinzo's, or rather one of the Western-style envelopes of the Ushiromiya family head. And after last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone other than Kinzo... Eva-sama!
申し訳
My
ございません
apologies.
部屋を失礼
Allow me
さ
to
せ
enter your room. After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. There was the sound of the door unlocking, and then he slowly turned the knob and slowly started opening the door. Light seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clank. It was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside. That meant that they were in the room now. The sound of voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV. All of these things made it clear that they were in the room, but there was no sign of them. Genji called to Eva once again through the crack of the door, but there was no answer. Genji-sama, what should we do? As part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any door in the mansion. But they had no way to open a door with a chain. The only way to get by the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of a servant's usual work. A creepy chill was already rushing up their backs. Kanon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone. I'll go call Madam. Kanon, cut the chain. Yes! As Kanon rushed away hurriedly to get a cutting tool, he was called back by Genji. Wait, Kanon. Go back to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. Whatever you do, do not act alone. You either. You're about to be alone, dog. Yes, certainly. It looked like Kanon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation, but Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself, but in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Kanon. In the kitchen was Kumasawa, who was piling food on the serving cart, and Nanjo, who seemed to have thought of a move that would turn the table on Genji and had been waiting his return, wanting to show him. But he immediately realized that something was wrong with Genji's demeanor. Oh, what has happened, Genji-san? Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow me to suspend this match for a time. Kanon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Kanon. I will go over to Madam. Okay. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo. Alright, so they are all moving in unison. Has something happened? Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen. Kumasawa-san, my apologies, but please come with me. I mean, these two, I would not expect to hold their own against whatever's killing all these people. What happened, Kanon-san? Unable to take in the situation, Kumasawa said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo and chased after Kanon, who had flown out into the hallway. Accompanied by Kumasawa, Kanon went to the storehouse, and from amongst the tools packed... Yeah, just casually go out to that storehouse, full of all the dead bodies. From amongst the tools packed, the toolboxes and hanging on the walls, he looked for a tool that could be used to cut the chain. What are you looking for? I will help. We're cutting a door chain. Where was that large bolt cutter? A door chain? Why would you do something like that? The chain is locked to Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama's room. Even though they should be inside, when we called to them, they didn't answer. It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize that this was an urgent situation. This will probably... Kanon took down a very large bolt cutter that he had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it would be easier to understand if described as having the shape of a large pair of pliers. He recalled being warned that it was a dangerous tool that you could easily cut through one of your fingers. Yeah, I think about it every time I see one. Kanon took that and rushed up the stairs. He knew it instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or maybe already. Please wait, Kanon-san. Hurry! Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. When Kanon changed his grip on the bolt cutter and looked up at the door, he let out an ah, struck speechless. Uh-oh. 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 What is this? Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. That was no surprise, because right there on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with paint that looked like blood. However, it was dubious whether this one could be called a magic circle, because unlike what most people would think of as a magic circle, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside of it, but a slightly more geometrical shape. However, the strange non-alphabetical characters written in the gaps of the figure were without doubt the same as the magic circle on the shutter. The thing that had Kanon struck speechless was not how eerie the magic circle was. Only moments ago, this hadn't been here. He had returned to the kitchen for a short while. He had then gone to the storehouse to grab a tool and headed right back. Put those together and it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding, several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer. Kumasawa's knees gave away and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Kanon surely would have wanted to. Beatrice-sama. It's the work of Beatrice-sama. How horrid. Kennen gulped, then readied the bolt cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to this disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he couldn't cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, went even closer, putting the bolt cutter up against the chain. He then pressed with all of his strength and cut through the chain far more easily than he had imagined. The cut chain fell into 2 separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth. Kanon-san, by your feet, an envelope. And isn't that the master's? It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed a Western-style envelope at the bottom of the door, and that the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Kanon was lost for a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room, but he decided on prioritizing his original purpose. Kanon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. It was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears had been realized, the police would want to investigate this room too. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to hear the sound of the television that had been seeping out slightly more clearly now. Eva-sama? Eva was face up on the bed. On the bed with her shoes still on. Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Kanon and who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short hee again when she saw Eva like that. Ava's shoes had been the first part of her that Kanon had seen, so the incongruity of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing that entered his mind. But after he shifted his line of sight towards Ava's head, Kanon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Ava's forehead, something was set there? Growing there? No. Right in the center of her forehead, an old-fashioned knife or some weapon like it was stuck right in. From the base where it was struck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more, and she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Ava, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead, was dead. Both eyes were open wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. But the mouth with which to speak that truth had already been eternally sealed. Even though that forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck into Ava's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a design so complicated you could never expect to see it on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon. What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama! Ava was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backward glance at Kumasawa, still there on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of the shower. The bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms, containing both a bath and a toilet. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep water from flying out. That waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked, both eyes still open. I like how we got his death portrait, but not Ava's. and those eyes were pointing right at Kanon. Just like Eva, a weapon with a demonic design was stuck in his forehead. Since his head had been under the hot water of the shower the whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Ava's had been. But the sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Just then, Natsu's voice rang through the hall. She was probably coming with Genji. Again with this graffiti? What about this letter? What does it say inside? I have not read it yet. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police. They would out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left fingerprints. Stating this with finality, Natsu picked up the envelope. Doesn't even go in the room, just... And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Ava dead. Okay, well. Ava-san! Madam, Hideyoshi-sama is here too. This is truly atrocious. Kano, turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to. Yes. Kanon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small bottle of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he had been attacked right in the middle of taking a shower. A spray of blood still clung slightly to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast. Dr. Namjo, I understand. No signs of post-mortem lividity. Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. I'd say barely an hour has passed since they were killed, if that. But even so, how a weapon with such a short handle could do that to the skull, I cannot imagine. Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. As Kanon watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, but after deciding that where possible it would be better to hand the scene over to the police without disturbing it, he left it alone. However, a close examination of the base revealed that it had no blade. Or rather, it wasn't shaped like a flat blade, but was conical. He noticed that rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handled spear, something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Rather than a short spear, some people might call it a thick ice pick. At any rate, the original hideous purpose for which this weapon with its unsettling design was made, and exactly how that purpose was carried out, were both displayed here in such a glaring fashion that there was absolutely no need to use further words to describe it. Natsu, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she'd had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsu couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. Anyway, we can't let George-kun see this room. Quickly close this room up. Gracious, no, it shouldn't be shown to them. If George-san saw his parents in this brutal state. But the recklessly approaching footsteps were obviously George's even before he came flying into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor, but when they had seen Genji call Natsu out and had noticed her turn pale and fly out of the room, they had felt he might have been the bearer of bad news. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Father! Mother! What is this? Another magic circle? Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Hey, Kanon-kun, what's this all about? Battler-sama. Kanon didn't have anything to say. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know. Who did this? I'll kill you! I'll kill you! George-kun, hang in there, dear. Natsu touched George's shoulder with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George collapsed on the floor beside Ava and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. Then he pounded on the bed with his fist over and over again. George-san, hang in there. Battler, Battler-sama. Battler had his back against the wall of the hallway, and was without restraint covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping. Horrible. That's horrible. He proposed to the girl he loved and lost her the next day, and on the same day even his mom and dad were killed. Isn't that just way too harsh? Of course, he felt sorry for everyone who had died, but Battler felt far more sorry for those who had been left alone by the deaths of others. Everyone here now had lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one he felt sorry for. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else's. Battler. Sure, all people die sooner or later. If you're human, the day's going to eventually come when you gotta fight the sorrow of losing someone close to you. But still, shouldn't that day be far in the future for Aniki? And shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Horrible. That's too horrible. Bastard. Bastard! Don't you have the slightest bit of human compassion?
Battler, don't cry, don't cry.
Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical-sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears. Damn it, I won't cry anymore. Tears of regret, tears of sadness, I won't shed them again. Yeah, it's no goddamn good at all. The witch is backing us into a corner. We're always on the defensive. And that's no good, it's no goddamn good. I'll flip over the chessboard. That bastard probably thinks of us like sheep, just cowering in fear. But guess what? I'll flip it over. That bastard can't escape this island until tomorrow either. We won't be the ones hiding away, pissing ourselves. That fucker will. I'll expose you, you'll see. By tomorrow. Don't forget tomorrow. Tonight. Before this night's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar. Good luck with that, Battler. She ain't corporeal. Flip that table. Alright, yeah, it's time to check the character screen for sure. Alright, so Kinzo has disappeared. Kraus is dead. Yeah, Nazi's not doing all right. Jessica's not doing all right. Ava's dead. Gored right in the center of the face. Found on the bed of a guest room inside the mansion with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into her forehead. The windows and door to the room were locked from the inside, and even the chain was set. No way a human could have killed her. Hideyoshi found in the bathroom of the same guest room that Ava was found in, with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his forehead, just the same as Ava. You can't see either of them by looking through the gap of the door while the chain is set. Can't see and can't reach. Go on. Could a human have killed them then? Is this Maria's notebook then? Is she the one writing this all? He's not alright. Rudolph's dead. Kyrie is pure bad luck. I'll be seeing her again, so I'm not lonely. Yeah, it's definitely Maria. Thanks to her excellent powers of memorization, she knows all kinds of obscure trivia. Kinzo's spy. Everyone will be revived in the Golden Land. He was supposed to be on duty in the guest house, which would have spared him, I assume. Okay. Is this a good place to stop, y'all think? We've got our second murder. Behold the sweet fish river running through my beloved home of old. You who seek the golden land, follow its path downstream in search of the key. As you travel down it, you will see a village. In that village, look for the shore the two speak of. There the key to the golden land sleeps. You who laid upon the key must journey as follows to the golden land. Natsuki laid her hand upon a key. Kanon also laid his hand upon a key. On the first twilight, sacrifice the 6 chosen by the key. On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the 2 who are close. So Ava and Hideyoshi were the 2 who are close, perhaps? On the third twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. On the fourth twilight, gouge the head and kill. Fifth twilight, gouge the chest and kill. So we've already got 2 heads have been gouged and killed. Quick grimoire for the translation notes. I don't really need those though, because I've been fine with all the Japanese stuff. Namu, 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 namu. No, I think I want to end here. I'm satisfied. I saw violence. And I'm kind of tired, and I don't want to end up ending in a less satisfying place necessarily. Yeah, the next one will be on Tuesday next week, not Wednesday. Keep this in mind. This will be on Tuesday. What am I thinking so far? What's my theory? I don't feel like there's nearly enough information to go on, really. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any idea where to go on. Stopping here is gay. Well, that's just prime. The most I'm going to go is another 30 minutes, and I don't know if that's going to take us anywhere more interesting than here. So that's why I'm thinking this feels like a good place to stop. Trixie is so lost. I mean, I'm not the type. Okay, I've never, while like watching a story, been like trying to solve it, because my perspective is like the story's going to tell me. Like, it's eventually going to just tell me the answer. Why would I like be wrong? You know, like, why make up stuff and be wrong when you know the answer is coming? That's always been something I struggle to understand with this kind of story. Like, even when, like, I would be a lot more frustrated with this story if I didn't think that all of the little misdirects were probably going to matter, you know? But what if I'm right? I mean, I've said already, my theory is that Maria did everything and that there's time travel involved, and you know, schizophrenic multiple personalities or something. Somehow Maria did everything. That's my theory. But I don't know why or how. I'm pretty sure that Umineko gets like really metaphysical and really like complicated in ways that it's not like easy to describe what happened. I don't know how true that is, but that's my impression based on what I understand happened in the later arcs. So, yeah, Amy said, I didn't try to solve anything because it's clearly supernatural, and if it gives an answer that makes mixes magic with real, I don't particularly care. The story can surprise me. Yeah, like, I don't know. If it was trying to convince me that there was no magic, it would be different, you know, but it feels like the opposite. You want to see people try to solve it. I mean, what is there to try to solve? What could possibly, like, there is nothing that seems possible right now other than, like, I don't know, a witch did it. Like, no, like, particularly with that last one, like, okay, so they've both been stabbed in the face in the middle of a closed room, and we knew where everyone was at the time. So, like, it was a ghost. I don't know. Fucking a witch showed up. Like, I don't see how it could be solved with the information we have right now. But again, it's not something it's not an approach I tend to take with media. Like, when I'm watching a mystery story, I'm not sitting there trying to, like, figure it out before the story does. I'm just like, I mean, if I do figure it out, obviously I'll say so. Like, I've said a few things where I predicted, I thought it was pretty obvious that those two were about to die, you know, in that scene. So, like, that's a little bit of, like, I've made a deduction, but it's more on the basis of, like, trope recognition than it is, you know, there are a few hints, but they are things you couldn't possibly know because it wasn't shown yet. It does recontextualize itself in small increments. Yeah. It's interesting to see what people think about what's going on. Okay. Well, so far, I think there's a golden witch named Beatrice, and through some kind of temporal shenanigans, she's fucking with everybody. And Maria is the only one who understands what's happening. That's as far as I can tell into the story so far. All right. We're going to continue this game on Tuesday, not Wednesday next week. Tuesday, because I'm going out of town on Wednesday. And I'll probably be streaming at some point tomorrow. It's my birthday tomorrow. For me, that's in like an hour and a half. So, happy birthday to me. I'm turning 33. Wowie zowie wowie. On Friday, we're going to watch some more Brigadoon. And maybe I'll play Shantae tomorrow. I know that's on the schedule. I haven't actually played it on the first 2 nights that it was scheduled because the first night my computer wasn't working, and the second night I wasn't sure I was going to be able to stream until later in the night. And then I did, and I just did a request stream because it was easier than setting up for Shantae. But maybe I'll stream and play Shantae tomorrow. If anybody wants to send me birthday money, please do it through Venmo or Cash App, Golden Witchfire. Anyway, thank you all for the happy early birthdays. Wish me another happy birthday tomorrow. I'll see you then. Goodbye, everybody. Good night. Have a good night.